Hello everyone, and welcome to another amazing part of What If Deku Ran an Orphanage? This amazing story was written by Kyodon. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Many of the children had gathered in the sim room, now simulating a ruined city, decayed and overgrown with plant life. All of them were wearing some form of military uniform/dress and were divided into two groups. Ladies and gentlemen, Kuki said he was standing on a stage, looking down over everyone else. We have come to an impasse. One side believes that action movies are the best, and the other side is wrong. And so there is only one way to settle this. War. Kuki gestured to one side, which consisted of Kiba, Kyoku, Netsu, Ken, aka Yaba, Lu, Himiko, and Hinata. On one side, team action. Then Kuki looked on the other side, which had Shiruku, Yami, Fuku, Frisk, Nara, Inu, Kano, Seikyo, Maria, and Mina. And on this side, team romance. Today these two sides will battle in an all-out, nerf war. May the odds be ever in your favor. You stole that from Hunger Games. Nara pointed out. Shut up. Kuki responded. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX outside the city itself. Team Action were all huddled up inside their strategy room, around a table with a holographic map. All right, I say we go with an all-out attack, Ken suggested, punching his palm to accentuate his point. Agreed. If we start now, we can overwhelm them with pure power, Kiba shouted. Kuki rolled his eyes. Idiots. Doing that will lose us the battle in an instant. We're already at a disadvantage. What do you mean? We just started, Lu asked. Did you guys forget that Nara has super speed? Kuki reminded them. They probably already used her to set traps and snipers all around the map. And who knows what else? They could have an ambush right outside our door. I could do the same thing if you let me teleport, Lu grumbled. In order to make things more fair, both Lu and Frisk were only allowed to teleport from their location, back to base, and then back to that exact location. We have to play this smart, slow, and careful, Kuki said. If I had to guess their plan, as soon as we leave, they're probably going to try and invade our base. Not only will that leave us without communication and ammo refills, but it'll also leave us trapped in a booby-trapped city. After that, they'll close in on us and take us out. All right, so what's your plan? Ken asked, crossing his arms and pouting. Like I said, slow and steady, Kuki said. First, Netsu. Ken, I need you both to stay in the base. What? Ken and Netsu shouted. No way, Kuki sighed, before walking over to the corner, and then signaling for Ken and Netsu to follow him. The two gave each other confused looks, shrugged, and then joined Kuki in the corner. Everyone else could hear whispers coming from the boys, and then a couple minutes later, they broke apart. All right, fine, Ken sighed. But if I don't get to do anything cool, you're paying for it. Same, Netsu added. I promise you will, Kuki said. Now, everyone else, we're going to move out. Kiba, I want you in front. You're going to be our shield and ram. I object to using Lady Kiba as a shield, Hinata argued. We need her power to break through whatever they have waiting for us outside, Kuki argued. She's the only one who can do it. It's one of the most important jobs. Well, Kiba puffed her chest out pridefully. If you truly require my power for our victory, then I suppose I must. Hinata bit her lip. She didn't like her lady being put in danger, but if it was her lady's, well then she could not object. Just please be careful, Lady Kiba. Hinata, my dear, we both know I'm never careful. Kiba half joked. Lo, I want you in the center. We need you to scan the area for traps. Kuki said. You're another important part of our team. Everyone else, I want you surrounding Lu at all times. Make sure to protect him at all costs. Any questions? No, sir, Himiko said playfully, and everyone else just kinda went along with it. All right, let's roll out, Kuki shouted. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX leading to the exit. But as they reached the exit, that's when they heard the whirring of turrets begin. Reacting quickly, Kiba summoned the shadows of everyone and put them up front, shaping them into a shield. She was just in time, as not even a second later, turrets that had been positioned outside their base's exit shot hundreds of foam darts at them, which bounced off Kiba's shield. "Eat this," Yaba shouted as she took the pin out of her Nerf Grande and threw it at the turrets. The Grande burst, causing lots of foam balls to explode out everywhere, hitting the turrets and causing them to shut down as their sensors told them to. As per the rules, they could not use their quirks offensively, otherwise what would be the point? They could only use their weapons to attack. "All right, let's go," Kiba shouted as she grew wings and flew towards the exit. "Wait." Kiba stopped. Kuki called out, but it was too late. Kiba burst out of the base, into the forest, pushing down the deactivated turrets and flying into the air. And then immediately she was beset by a hail of foam darts. Shuku had been hiding in a nearby tree and was now shooting at her with her Nerf minigun, while Seikyo had been flying just out of sight, using her telekinesis to hold and fire various weapons all at once. Whoa, 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 whoa. Kiba put up her shadow shield but only managed to protect her body in time, as her wings had gotten hit by the darts. Curses! Kiba dropped to the ground. As part of the rules, if a body part gets hit enough, they would no longer be able to use that body part. Their uniforms even had sensors in them that would detect if a body part was unusable or if they were eliminated. "Open fire," Kuki ordered. Everyone fired at the two, sticking to the sides of the walls to use them as cover. Seikyo flew back to avoid the darts, while Shiruku kept firing while jumping back, but her leg got hit by one of the darts. Shiruku immediately stopped firing, as she and Seikyo committed to a full retreat, heading back into the city. "Are you all right, Lady Kiba?" Hinata asked as she set aside her sniper rifle and checked on her lady. "I'm afraid that I'll no longer be able to fly, but other than that I'm fine," Kiba said. "That's a big loss, but at least you didn't get eliminated." Kuki sighed. "Lu. Scan." "Got it." Lu set down his assault rifle and pointed his palm in front of them, performing a scan using his quirk. "All right, I see the traps. They set a lot of them. Be careful where you step. They have landmines everywhere." Who else has enough time and space to play with Nerf landmines? Kyoko wondered. "All right, Kiba lead. Lu, tell us where to go." Kuki pressed down on his earpiece. "Ken, are you tracking our location?" "Yup," Ken replied over comms. "Okay, let's move." Kuki ordered. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX safest way through the city was via the river that ran through the middle of it. It was a shallow stream that only went up to their waist, and the current wasn't too strong, allowing them to trudge through the water into the ruins. This is freaking awesome. Kuki had to fight to keep a smile off his face, trudging through high water with a gun in his arms. It was just like all those war movies he watched. Maybe I should ask Kiba to carry me, Kyoka thought, as she probably had the hardest time moving through the water, mostly due to being the shortest and weakest of the group. Maybe I could use my power to dry myself. Lu wondered. Wait, what if I end up drying out my body and turning myself into a raisin? You better not try it. Wait. Himiko shouted, causing everyone to stop. Do you hear that? It sounds like a bug. A really, really big bug. Kuki's eyes widened. Kano, Lu, you know any safe buildings? Ones with roofs. Lu tried to remember which buildings were safe and which ones had traps in them. That one. Over there, I think. You think, why didn't you, Ugg? Never mind. Kiba, give us a boost. Get us out of the river. Kuki shouted. Kiba solidified the shadows under their feet and raised them up to the ground. Immediately, they all started running towards a nearby ruined building, and as they ran, everyone could start hearing the sound of wings flapping. Kano flew in from above, wielding 2 Nerf grenade launchers in hand. Kiba put up a shadow shield over them, just as Kano started opening fire, raining Nerf grenades down on them. The shield protected them from most of the onslaught, but one of the grenades landed behind them, bursting, and one of the foam pellets hit Hinata right in the leg. Hinata tripped and fell as she felt her left leg become unresponsive. Hinata. Kiba stopped and quickly grabbed her loyal blade, giving her her shoulder and helping her limp into the building with everyone else. Into safety. Ag. Hinata hissed in pretend pain as Kiba laid her against a wall. I'm sorry, Lady Kiba. Ag. I don't think I can walk. That's all right. So long as you're alive. That's all that matters, Kiba told her. Okay, what now? Lu asked, looking to Kuki for advice. Kuki stayed silent for a while, tapping his foot against the floor as he thought deeply about the situation. Lu, go back to base and get me a decoy. Sure. Lu shrugged, before teleporting away. A couple minutes later, Lu returned, with a dummy that was wearing the same uniform as the rest of them. Great, now toss it out the window, Kuki ordered. Lu still didn't know where this was going, but he complied, throwing the dummy out the window. And almost as soon as it was thrown out, it was hit by a dart from somewhere in the distance. As I thought, sniper, Kuki explained. How did you know there was a sniper? Kyoko asked. I was wondering why they waited this long to ambush us. They were waiting for us to get in range. Kuki said, now we're surrounded by traps and a sniper, and they're ready to air raid us whenever they want. So we're screwed. Lu deadpanned. Not yet we aren't, Kuki said. They have the skies, and they have the streets. But we still have one place to go. The ground. You want us to die? Yaba asked. Kuki face-palmed. Lu, go get us some shovels. Oh. Lu realized where this was going now, and quickly teleported away. Kiba, Yaba, get ready to start digging. When Lu gets back, we need you to dig us to a safe place. Kuki said, before turning his attention to Himiko. Himiko, if you go on your own, do you think you can sneak your way to the sniper? Maybe. Himiko mused. It sounds fun to try though. All right, I wish you luck, soldier. Kuki said, giving her a salute. Lu teleported back, shoves in hand. Got him. All right, let's get digging. Kuki ordered. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Frisk and Mina snuck up to the entrance. "You ready?" Mina asked with a grin as she held up her pistols. "Ready as we'll ever be," Frisk said, giving a thumbs up. "Okay, Operation Crusher is a go," Mina said. "It's dark in here," Nara noted as she walked through the base beside her teammates, pistol in hand. "Yeah, weird." Mina shrugged. They kept walking until they saw something. In a nearby room, they saw a faint, flickering glow, and they could barely hear the sound of fire. Mina looked excitedly at the kids and mouthed, "Netsu," before hurriedly and carefully approaching the door. The kids followed her, but as they got up near the doorway, Nara felt a sinking feeling in her gut. But before she could voice her concern, Mina and Frisk rushed into the room, and Nara just kind of went with it. They immediately shot at the source of the light, thinking it was Netsu, only to realize a second later that they were shooting at a torch. WRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRR miniguns. When you get to hell, tell him Ken sent ya. Ken quipped before opening fire. Tada-tada-tada-tada. A hail of darts shot out towards them. Mina and Nara couldn't react in time and got shot up all over, while Frisk barely managed to snap their fingers in time, taking a hit in the arm before teleporting away. Brrrr. Mina and Nara's outfits let off a sound, signifying their elimination. Oh man, Mina groaned. I knew it was a trap. Nara swore, thoroughly regretting not having said anything earlier. Wait, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? Mina asked. Well, everything just happened so fast I didn't get the chance. Nara stuttered. And you're supposed to be a hero student? Shouldn't you know better than to fall for stuff like this? Mina opened her mouth and then closed it again when she realized she was about to argue that a 10-year-old should know better than to ask her to be the brains of the situation. Yeah, when you put it like that, my bad. Either way, you're both losers. Ha. Ken cackled as he set down his guns and high-fived himself. Nara had to fight the urge not to cheat and shoot him anyway. But she was better than that. She'd just stuff a water balloon in his pillow tonight. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX minute. Who knew digging was this hard? Team Action had dug all the way out of the building they were, to a new building. This one was mostly collapsed and didn't have any openings besides small holes that were too tiny for anyone to actually go through. Good work, you two. Kuki praised his two diggers. Now we don't have to worry so much about them setting up an ambush. So what should we do now? Kyoko asked. Counterattack. Not at all. We're still at too much of a disadvantage, Kuki said. I bet Yami has seers everywhere. They still have the sky advantage and a sniper. So why don't we just dig all the way to their base? Yaba suggested. How about hell no? Lu objected. We can't exhaust our diggers, Kuki explained. For now. Let's just wait for Himiko to take out the sniper, and then hopefully we can have one of our own. Great. Let's call her and see how she's doing, Yaba said, pulling out her walkie-talkie, but Kuki lunged forward and yanked it out of her hands. Hey, are you crazy? Himiko is on a stealth mission. What if she was sneaking around the enemy, and you just called her up, alerting them to her presence? Kuki pointed out. Oh, Yaba blushed sheepishly, as she realized she almost made a critical error. Suddenly the communicator activated, and Ken's voice spoke out of it. Guys, Nara, Mina, and Frisk tried to invade the base, but we took them down just as planned. But Frisk kinda got away. Kuki sighed. Of all the people to miss. Whatever, good work. Now we're in the lead. Just need to wait for Himiko now. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX where the dart had been shot from, and then figure out what building in that direction would make the best sniping spot. In the end, the spot Himiko decided to investigate first was a clock tower. After carefully climbing up, she eventually found herself near the top, in a small room, with a ladder and a hatch leading to the top. She could faintly hear people above her, breathing, subtle movements, etc. Now the issue was finding a way up. Entering through the hatch was the obvious option, but she could tell that opening that thing would make it squeak and immediately give her away. But there weren't exactly any other options. Himiko was confident in her climbing ability, but Izuku had told them to not do anything dangerous during the game, and she was fairly certain that climbing the side of a dilapidated old tower would count as dangerous. So she had to go through the hatch, which would mean she was definitely getting into a fight. Okay. Himiko took a deep breath as she slowly and carefully climbed the ladder up to the hatch. Maximum effort. Himiko pulled out a grande, chucked open the hatch, and threw it. Ep. Those girlish screams immediately told Himiko that Fuku and Inu were her opponents, and she heard them desperately scrambling to run away from the grande, which still had a pin in it. While the girls were freaking out, Himiko leaped through the hatch and aimed her pistol at Inu, who was the closest. Plop. Guns fired. Himiko's dart landed right in Inu's chest, eliminating her, but to Himiko's surprise, Inu had managed to return fire with her assault rifle. Of course, most of her shots missed due to being taken completely off guard, making her aim a miss. But through sheer luck, one of the darts launched in her wild spray managed to hit Himiko in the leg. Brrrr. Bang. Ow. With her legs disabled, Himiko ended up falling on her back, having to take a second to recover from the pain, while Fuku called in on her communicator. Help! Help! Himiko's here. She already got Inu. And I'm next. Fuku cried in such a desperate manner that it made Himiko wonder if she forgot this was all a game. Well, this went poorly. Himiko thought as she forced herself up against the wall and picked up her pistol before aiming at Fuku. Plop, 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 plop. Ah! Fuku screamed as she took evasive maneuvers, that being running around frantically and somehow managing to avoid every dart, until Himiko's clip ran out. What the heck? Himiko was befuddled, and that befuddlement bought Fuku enough time to drop her sniper rifle and get to her bow and arrow. Ah, crap baskets. As Fuku knocked back her Nerf arrow, Himiki dropped her pistol and pulled out her Nerf knife. Plunk. Fuku shot her arrow, and Himiko kicked herself off the wall while throwing her knife. Himiko's foam knife hit Fuku right in the chest, while Fuku's arrow managed to hit Himiko's arm. Brrrr. Ag. No. Fuku cried as she flopped onto the ground. Dang it. Himiko groaned as she looked at her now disabled arm. Man, you guys are better than I expected. Nice hit, Fuku. Thank you. Both girls dejectedly said. Himiko pulled out her communicator. Hey, I took out the sniper. It was Fuku, with Inu guarding her. I got them both, but they took out my arm and leg. Good work. Make it back to base and help with guarding it. Can't keep you on the field with those injuries. Kuki answered back. Vrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr wings. Kano. Shit, Kuki swore. Take cover in the building. We can try and take her out with our sniper dash. No. Too risky. I'll get her, Himiko said. You know what that'll mean for you, right? Kuki asked. Himiko nodded. It's been an honor, sir. Godspeed, soldier, Kuki said, before cutting off communication. With that, Himiko threw away her communicator, picked up her pistol, and reloaded it. Soon Kano was in sight, 2 grenade launchers in hand. Himiko slumped up against the bell and aimed her pistol up, taking a moment to steady her aim. Kano aimed her grenade launchers at the tower and fired 1 shot from each of them. Plunk! Plop! Himiko shot one of the grenades as it flew through the air, causing it to stop mid-air. Plunk! The grenades popped, one right next to Himiko's foot and one only about a foot away from Kano. Brrrr. Foam pellets burst out, hitting Himiko all over and hitting Kano's arm and wing. Ah, dang it. Kano pouted as she dropped one of her guns and went back down to the ground. Himiko dramatically dropped her gun and fell onto her back. It's all up to you now. Win this for us. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX back to his teammates. Men, the sniper is gone, but at a great cost. No, not Himiko. Kiba muttered with a look of absolute horror. I'm afraid so, Kuki said, before taking a deep breath and puffing out his chest. But we can't let her sacrifice be in vain. We may be trapped in enemy-dominated territory, but we know we've taken out at least 4 of their men while losing only 1 of ours. And I'd like to keep it that way. Lu, scan for traps, and let's head out. Got it. Lu performed another scan, getting a good look at the area around them. There's a street to our left with fewer traps. Just watch where you step, and we should be good. No one flying around or hiding in buildings. Kuki asked skeptically. Nope, Lu said. Maybe Nara didn't have enough time to set traps there. Or she didn't have enough traps. Kuki had his doubts about that. Something just seemed trappy about the whole situation. But still, he didn't have many other options. They had to get going before they got found and surrounded. And he didn't have any other paths for them to move on. And besides, they shouldn't know their location since they went through the ground, right? All right, let's go, and be careful. Be ready to run anywhere, at any time, and keep your eyes and ears peeled. Kuki said. Kiba, the door. Kiba went over to a wall and gently pushed it, creating a hole big enough for them to leave through. Go, go, go. Kuki urged them as they jumped out of the hole and ran into the street. They kept running, making a hard right onto another street. This street was narrower and completely walled off by buildings on either side. The place immediately gave Kuki a bad vibe. Kuki signaled for them to stop running and start walking, wanting to be extra cautious as they went down the street. It was eerily silent, the only sound being their footsteps, the rustling of their plastic guns in their arms. They made it halfway down the street, until Kyoku, who had been looking up the entire time to watch out for more ambush, noticed something. Some small things in the sky. Hey, what's that? All of them stopped and looked up, seeing the same small objects, which only seemed to be getting closer and closer each second. Kuki's eyes went wide. Mortars. Get in the buildings now. The Nerf mortar shells rained down on them, bursting apart as foam balls rained everywhere. Kiba put up a shadow shield over them to keep them from getting hit directly, but they still had to dodge some stay balls. Yaba had pulled out her Nerf sword and started batting away as many balls as she could, while they filed into a nearby building. Damn it! How did they find us and set up a trap so fast? Kuki wondered as he tried to recall everyone's quirks. And then his eyes went wide. Yami. Kuki had always focused more on the cool, creating monsters part of Yami's quirk, that he'd completely forgotten that Yami could see people's emotions, even through walls. Yami had seen through their attempts at hiding the entire time, and acted accordingly, and he played right into his hands. Crash. Suddenly the wall to the building they were in was torn down by Shiroku, who was followed by Seikyo and Kano. All of their guns aimed right at them. Mega crap, Kuki thought. Kiba put up a shield just in time, as the girls began to fire their guns and unleash a ridiculous amount of darts at them. Unfortunately, the shield wasn't enough. Seikyo threw a grenade over the shield, landing right behind everyone. No, Hinata pushed off of Kiba and fell onto the grenade just in time for it to burst open, shielding everyone else, but getting hit by every single foam ball. Brrrr. No, Kiba wailed out in despair as she held her fallen servant. No time to mourn, Kuki shouted as he threw their own grenade over the shield, forcing the other team to stop firing so Seikyo could put up her own shield to block it. Go, 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 ga? I'm sorry, Hinata. I'll avenge you. Kiba swore as she and everyone else booked it out of the building. Thankfully, the mortar bombings had stopped, but the three heavily armed girls were on their tails. Team Action was forced to throw back as many grenades as possible to slow them down. Still, the girls would throw grenades over their shields, which Kiba and Yaba batted away with their shield and sword respectively. "Quick, I need that sewer grate open," Kuki said as he pointed to an upcoming manhole cover. "I got it. Kiba focuses on that shield you hear." Yaba ran over to the manhole cover and started trying to lift it. Grrrr. Rah. Due to being so far away from her sisters, Yaba was much weaker than she would be otherwise. Still, eventually, she managed to pull the grate off and threw it aside. "All right, wait. Kuki shouted as Yaba jumped in before he could finish talking. Yaba landed on the walkway in the sewer and immediately set off a claymore, which burst out, unleashing a bunch of foam balls all over the place, many hitting Yaba, eliminating her. Brrrr. Fuck, Yaba swore. Ugh. Kuki groaned, suppressing the urge to facepalm. Everyone get in. One by one, everyone funneled into the sewer before Kiba used her shadows to cover the entrance. Immediately, Kuki turned to Yaba with a frustrated scowl on his face. "I was about to tell you that we should throw a grenade down here to take care of any traps." "Well, why didn't you say that earlier?" Yaba growled. "I didn't have time to give a full explanation while we were under fire," Kuki argued. Slam, 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 slam. The roof of the sewer shook as someone, most likely Shiruku, was punching down on it, trying to break through. "I don't think we can hide in here forever," Kyoka pointed out. "We don't need to," Kuki said, as he took out his communicator. "I want an airstrike on top of our location. I repeat, I want an airstrike on top of our location." Finally, they heard Netsu say over the communicator before it cut out. "Lu, go back to base and get the mega bazooka," Kuki ordered. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX into the sewers while the other two waited. A thought occurs. Why are we trying to figure out if action or romance is better with a contest that consists mostly of action? Kano asked. Sakio shrugged. Sounded fun, and Kuki really wanted to do it. Then suddenly, Netsu came shooting forward in the air, holding 2 grenade launchers, and firing grenades down on the girls. Ah! The girls screamed as they were unexpectedly attacked. Sakio managed to shield herself in time, but the other 2 girls were immediately pelted by foam balls and eliminated. Brrrr. Brrrr. As Netsu made a rough U-turn, dropping his now out of grenade launchers, pulling his dual pistols out of his holsters, and started firing down on Sakio. But Sakio took to the air, avoiding his shots, and unleashing her own barrage of darts, most of which missed Netsu as he flew at high speeds. But there were just so many of them that a few managed to hit Netsu's face, eliminating him. Brrrr. Oh man. Netsu sighed as he flew away. With her biggest threat eliminated, Sakio turned back to the sewer grate, only to find that everyone had climbed out, and Kibo was now aiming a Nerf Mega Bazooka at her. Bonk. Sakio barely managed to put up a shield in time, but once the massive cannonball-like shot hit it, she was forced to take the shield down. To balance shields and buff the otherwise impractical bazookas, if you hit someone's shield with a bazooka, that shield would be unusable. This, of course, left Sakio open, and AKA and Kyoka shot her up, eliminating her. Brrrr. Damn it, Sakio pouted as she lowered herself to the ground. Mwahaha. We did it. AKA cheered, raising her hand and giving Kyoku a high five to celebrate. My loyal blade, you have been avenged, Kiba said dramatically. All right, everyone. They should be going on the defensive now, so they'll probably buckle down in their base, Kuki said. Be ready, it's time for a raid. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX little issue. They stood outside the entrance of the base, stopping just before they entered. Looks like they're using the same in-the-dark tactics as we did, Kuki said as he looked into the entrance, noticing how seemingly all the lights in the base were off. Be careful. Yami can still see us even if we can't see him. Lu, scan. Got it. Lu raised his arm and got ready to do another scan. Plop. When suddenly Lou was shot in the head from behind, by none other than Maria, and everyone quickly turned around and shot her back, eliminating her as well. Brrrr. Brrrr. Oh, come on. Lou groaned as he glared at his older cousin. Really? Maria shrugged. Should have been more careful. Ugh. Damn it. Kuki groaned, cursing himself for not checking around them before they stopped. Such a rookie mistake. Fine, let's just head in and be as careful as possible. Flashlights on. They all took out their flashlight attachments and equipped them to their guns before going in. Kiba and Kuki looked forward while Kyoku and AKA looked back to make sure no one snuck up on them in the dark. The four of them walked slowly and carefully into the base. It was dead quiet, the only sound being the noise of their footsteps against the metal floor. After making their way rather deep into the base, Kiba noticed something behind a corner. A foot. Kiba tapped Kuki on the shoulder before nodding her head over to the shoe, bringing it to his attention. Kuki looked at the shoe and mouthed, "Be ready." Could come from both sides. They kept moving forward until they reached the corner. "Now," Kuki whispered, and they all charged forward, Kuki and Kiba pointing their guns to the left, while Kyoku and AKA pointed their guns to the right, only to find no one on both sides, as the shoe they'd seen was only a shoe with no one wearing it. Kuki quickly realized what was happening. This was a trap, and with no one on either side, that left one option. He turned his light above them, revealing a hound on the ceiling with 5 grenades in its chest. "Scatter!" Kuki shouted as the hound dropped the grenades on top of them. The force separated into 2 groups going down the left and right as the grenades fell and burst. Kyoka got hit in the leg by one of the balls, causing her to fall. The hound dropped to the floor and opened its mouth, revealing that it had a Nerf shotgun crammed into its maw, and it fired down on Kyoku, eliminating her. Brrrr. "Curse you. Feel my wrath," AKA shouted as she shot the hound in the face, causing it to flop over and play dead. Plop. Only for AKA to then get shot in the back and eliminated. Brrrr. What the? AKA looked behind her to see that the one who'd shot her was none other than Frisk. Frisk stuck their tongue out playfully before teleporting away, appearing right behind Kuki. "Watch out." Kiba leapt at Kuki, pushing him out of the way and taking the dart instead, eliminating her. Brrrr. Kuki fell on his butt, but immediately reacted by shooting Frisk right in the face, eliminating them as well. Brrrr. "Oh darn," Frisk said, taking their defeat about as well as expected. "Go on, finish the fight," Kiba said as she lay down on the cold metal floor. "Do it for us." "Copy. Rest well, soldier," Kuki said, before running deeper into the base. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX as his hands trembled a bit. Okay, calm down. It's one-on-one, and Yami can see me wherever I am. Okay, what would I do if I had that power? Well, I'd probably keep it simple. Just hide behind a corner or something and wait for me to be in range. Okay, how do I counter that? I can't see very well, and I don't have any more grenades to throw around corners. I'm at a big disadvantage. Screw it. There's only one way to win. Just gotta focus. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, lightening his footsteps so he could focus on his hearing. And as he moved closer to the end of the hall, he finally heard it. Breathing. It was kind of far away, meaning Yami was probably waiting at the end of the other hallway. Once he turned the corner, Yami would fire at him from the end of the hall or throw a grenade. Actually, a grenade was more likely, because then it would be harder for him to retreat. So that begged the question, what could he do? After debating in his head for a while, Kuki finally came up with a plan. Aha! Lolalelele. Kuki booked it around the corner while yelling nonsense as loud as he could and firing seemingly at random. Yami, who had been hiding in wait for intruders, was completely taken off guard by this and ended up freezing, and when he finally did reach for his pistol, Kuki had already made it to him. Punk. The two shot at each other at the same time. Yami, still startled, ended up shooting Kuki in the shoulder, while Kuki shot him right in the chest. BRRRRRRR. Team action wins. Yes. Kuki jumped for joy, fist pumping the air. Yes. 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 I did it. I did it. I won. Wahoo! Yami shrugged off the disappointment he felt in defeat and extended his hand out towards Kuki. Good job. Kuki eagerly shook Yami's hand, still on a high from winning. Thanks. And with that handshake, the war finally came to an end. Eri was beginning to wonder if her quirk was symbolic of her life, like some kind of prophecy or something. Because whenever she thought she was moving on, something would come and bring her mind back to those days. Blood donations, the 8 bullets showing up, more and more villain attacks, etc. And now Tenko had Overhaul's quirk. Not a quirk similar to Overhaul's, but Overhaul's exact quirk. Somehow, Izuku had tried to explain it, but the whole situation just seemed so bizarre and convoluted that Eri simply couldn't comprehend it at the moment. And so her current explanation was that there was some kind of higher power that took great joy in screwing with her, and she really didn't appreciate that. Still, what could she do about it? It's not like she could ask Tenko to go back to being quirkless. No, she'd seen just how much pain and hardship quirklessness had caused Izuku, and she wouldn't wish that upon anyone. If anything, she should be happy Tenko has a quirk now, even if it belonged to a truly evil man. So should she just avoid him? Try to stay away from Tenko as much as possible? A sizable part of her wanted to go with that option, but there were a few things that kept her from picking it. The first was that it just felt wrong to avoid Tenko like that when he'd never done anything wrong. Well, technically Tenko was Tamura Shigaraki, leader of the League of Villains, but he also wasn't anymore because SHE rewinded him. So, as far as Tenko is concerned, he's completely innocent, probably. It was a very confusing situation, but Izuku said he was fine, so Eri would say the same. And a quirk was just a tool. Just like her own rewind. Overhaul, the quirk not the person, could be used for both good and evil. And Tenko wanted to use it to be a hero. So there was no good reason for her to avoid him other than her own fear. This brought her to her second point. Eri was really tired of being afraid. She was tired of letting her fear of Overhaul influence her, tired of letting a dead man have power over her. Tenko was her sibling now, and more than that, he was someone who was also going through his own hardships, like the loss of his entire family, his family that also abused him, and the thought of letting her fear of Overhaul keep her from connecting with him and maybe even helping him somehow genuinely made her stomach turn. No more running away, no more drawing things out. She was going to take care of this issue, right now. After consulting with Izuku and Kei, Eri figured the best way to do that would be to get to know Tenko and start seeing him as his own person. And the only way to do that was to spend time with him, which is what led her to being in Tenko's room right now, the two sitting awkwardly in pure silence. Eri looked around the room and found it was eerie. It was clean. Too clean. Most people, even the neater ones, always had at least a bit of clutter. A small spot with a bit of dust. Some small flaw. But here, everything was clean. Everything was in order. It was like one of those fake bedrooms you'd see in a store where everything was meant for display rather than for someone to actually live in. Tenko even had her take her shoes off before entering. He was definitely reminding her of Overhaul in that way. But at the same time, the room was colorful, decorated in ways that Eri would never imagine Overhaul even considering. The fact that it was so similar to a room Overhaul would live in, but at the same time very clearly not that, was throwing her for a bit of a loop. And it definitely wasn't helping her anxiety. So what do you normally do for fun? Eri asked. When she'd first asked the boy if she could spend the day with him, he'd been ecstatic. But now it seemed like he just didn't know what to do with her here. Like he'd never had friends over before. Which, considering his history, might have been the case. Another thing that was similar to Overhaul, but different. Overhaul didn't have friends. He had minions and the boss. He was very clearly not a social person. But unlike Tenko, he made up for that with a kind of intimidation factor. Not even needing words to convey a message, his body language alone. And that message was typically, do what I'll say or I'll kill you. Tenko didn't have any of that. Oh, I play video games. Tenko replied sheepishly. Video games? Eri repeated. She'd heard Overhaul voice his opinion on video games, but she couldn't imagine him being fond of them. Why, yeah, I play a lot of RPGs. They're not really two-player games. But, I think I have a two-player action. Tenko said. Do you want to play? Sure. Eri wasn't a huge fan of most games, but it sure beat just sitting around doing nothing. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX and after getting their lunches from the cafeteria, the two decided to eat outside in the garden. And once again, Eri found herself feeling unsettled by how similar, yet different Tenko was to Overhaul. It was clear Tenko enjoyed his food. Overhaul never enjoyed eating. To him, it was a messy process that was required to stay alive. And although Tenko really liked eating, it was obvious that Tenko was comfortable with the messiness as well. He ate slowly and meticulously, with a napkin over his lap and around his neck to make sure if any food did get on him, it didn't get on his clothes. And he was trying very, very hard not to look at her when she ate. Overhaul always ate alone and made a rule not to have anything eating anything near him. And any that broke that rule would receive a nasty glare at best, and at worst, they'd never be seen again. It depended on your rank and Overhaul's mood that day. And while Tenko didn't glare or even say anything, she could tell that the less careful way she ate bothered him. It didn't leave her with much of an appetite, despite the wonderful food. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX When she'd come up to him, she seemed determined, like she was about to do something extremely difficult. It had struck him as odd at the time, but he'd shrugged it off. What was harder to shrug off was the fact that Eri was clearly uncomfortable around him the entire time. At first, he thought it was just because the two of them didn't really know how to talk to each other. Then he thought it was because she didn't really like action games all that much. Then he assumed it was because she knew that the way she ate made him uncomfortable and felt uncomfortable herself because of that. And then this happened. "Hey, why don't I show you what I can do with my quirk?" Tinko asked. Immediately, Tinko saw mortal fear flash in her eyes, like someone had just pulled a weapon on her or something. SS sure. Eri stuttered, very clearly forcing herself, sweat starting to trickle down her face. "Hey, did I do something wrong?" Tinko asked, finally working up the nerve. "No," Eri shouted, immediately making both of them flinch with the volume of her voice. A regretful look quickly followed. "And no, you haven't done anything wrong." "What?" "Because of that," Tinko pointed out. "You've been acting super weird all day, looking at me like I'm a bomb about to go off." Oh, Eri said dejectedly. "I am okay. Do you know about me past?" Tinko grimaced. "Yeah, your quirk is similar to that man, the one who hurt me," Eri admitted. Tinko was left speechless. Now everything made sense. Well, almost everything. Although the rest would make itself clear soon. "It's not your fault. You can't control that," Eri added quickly. It makes me feel, I didn't want to be afraid of you. You haven't done anything wrong, and I just thought that if I spent time with you I'd be less afraid." "But why didn't you tell me?" Tinko asked. "I didn't want to make you feel bad," Eri explained. "I thought I could just get over it." "Yeah, I don't think it works like that." Tinko sighed. "I really wish it did though." After that, they sat in silence. Neither one is really sure what to say. They both wanted to fix this problem, but by now they both understood that it wasn't really that simple, and neither of them knew where to start. That was until Tinko had an idea. "I always thought that heroes were cool," Tinko said. "Huh," Eri said. "I mean, who doesn't? People who risk their lives to help others. That's just the coolest thing ever," Tinko explained, a fond smile appearing on his face as he talked. "I would imagine being a hero, going on adventures, saving people, making friends, and doing it all again. That's my dream." Suddenly his smile vanished, and a more mournful expression took its place. "But my dad always hated heroes. I never knew why, but he always gets angry whenever I talk about being a hero. Sometimes he'd even beat me. Eventually, I started to wonder, why wouldn't the heroes save me? I know it's not that simple. They probably didn't even notice anything was going wrong. But I think I want to be the kind of hero that does notice that kind of thing, so that's why dash." Tinko got up and gave Eri an apologetic bow. "I'm sorry, but you didn't do anything wrong," Eri repeated firmly. Tinko shook his head. "No, I knew you were uncomfortable, and I didn't ask why. You were suffering, and I didn't do anything about it. And that's not the kind of hero I want to be. I want to be the kind of hero who saves people that nobody else will. So this kind of mistake is unforgivable. But I hope you do forgive me, because I want to help you be not as afraid of me and my quirk. No matter what. It's a promise." Eri looked up at him, in shock and awe, frozen for a few moments, before a small smile graced her face. "You're not like him. Not at all. and I think we'll be really good friends. Tinko's eyes went wide. Whoa, really? Just like that? Well, I'd like it if warned me before you used your quirk. I'm still a little afraid of that, but not you. Harry explained. One day I hope I can watch you use your quirk just fine, but not right now. Oh, sure. Of course. Tinko happily agreed. We just gotta work on it, one baby step at a time. Yeah, baby steps. Harry did a little fist bump as she felt determination flow back into her little body. Let's do our best. Yeah, let's do our best. Tinko repeated. Fuhai loved books. They were filled with wonderful adventures that let him experience lots of things without actually having to endanger himself by actually going out and experiencing them. A perfectly safe way to enjoy himself that couldn't hurt him the slightest. Ow! Fuhai hissed as he got a paper cut while turning a page. He immediately dropped the book and looked at his thumb, which was now bleeding from the cut. Oh no! Oh no, oh no, oh no. What if I lose too much blood and die? Or a bug crawls inside it and eats all my insides? Fuhai started to spiral, as he usually did before he reminded himself that it was all in his head. All right, I can heal. It's gonna heal. Any second now, any second. But much to his dread, the wound stayed open, showing no signs of healing. It's not healing. It's not healing. Fuhai started hyperventilating. He felt his heart begin to pound out of his chest as his body became filled with manic energy. I'm gonna die? Ah! His door flung open, and immediately Fu ran in. What's wrong? It's not healing. Fuhai stuttered in fright as he tried to talk through his labored breathing and tear-filled groans. Fu ran up and looked at his thumb and was shocked to find it was, in fact, not healing. Oh! Fu looked up at Fuhai and put his hands on his shoulders. Hey, buddy, you gotta breathe, remember? Do what the nice men told you to do whenever you feel like you're gonna die. Breathe. Fuhai reminded himself as he tried his best to follow Fu's instructions and calm his breathing, slowly taking a big breath and then letting it out at a steady pace. And while he was at it, he clenched and unclenched his hands and toes. That's right, buddy, just calm down. It's just a paper cut. Even if it doesn't heal right away, it's not gonna kill you. Fu told him. He saw Fuhai open his mouth to talk, but Fu put up a finger, signaling him to stay quiet and calm down. Do you feel pain anywhere but your finger? And no. Fuhai sniffled, slowly starting to calm down a bit, at least to the point where he could breathe again. Can you move all your limbs? Fu asked, getting a nod in response. Then you're probably fine. Quirk mishaps happen all the time. They're mysterious after all. But just in case, let's get you to Dad, and let's see if he can figure out what's going on. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX to get him checked up. And after a couple hours of testing, the doctor was finally ready to give her a report. Well, his body is fine. No abnormalities, quirk factor undamaged. Which leaves only one option. Vera said, PQF, or rather, psychosomatic quirk failure. What is that? Is that a disease? Is that going to kill me? Fuhai asked. No. It's not disease. Well, it is, but not of body. It is disease of the mind. Vera explained. You see, child, have you ever heard of hallucinations? Seeing and hearing things that aren't real. Fuhai nodded. I saw it in a movie once, I think. Well, sometimes, your body makes you feel things that are not real as well. Like physical hallucination. Vera explained as simply as she could. This is what we call psychosomatic illness. Sometimes it makes us believe we are sick, or that your arms or legs do not work, or that you are dying. But in fact, it is all in your mind. You think something, and your body makes you feel it. My mind can do that. Fuhai asked in a mixture of fear and awe. Yes, and much more. The mind can have very powerful effect on the body. So much stronger than you think it is. Vera told him. Psychosomatic quirk failure is when person thinks that, for some reason, their quirk will not work. And so your body makes it so it doesn't. But I thought it was going to work. Fuhai argued. Maybe that's what you told yourself, but not what you believe. Vera continued. Were you afraid that you wouldn't heal? That quirk wouldn't work? That you were going to die? Why, yes. Fuhai admitted. Logically, he knew his quirk would work. Should work. That he was actually a lot harder to kill than most. But no matter how many times anyone told him that, or how many times he told himself that, There was always this little voice in his head that would tell him that he was weak, that he could die at any moment, that his quirk would fail him, just like it did on that day. And now that voice had talked those nightmarish delusions into reality. So what can we do? Izuku asked immediately. If his quirk factor is fine, then there should be someone to force it to activate. Oh yes, very simple solution. He just need to go to sleep, and quirk factor turn back on until he wake back up. Vera told him, before walking over to Fuhai. And so now I put him to sleep, so he can heal a little boo-boo. How are you going to put me to sleep? Fuhai asked, trembling as the large Russian woman loomed over him menacingly. The Russian way, Vera answered, before cocking her arm back and then punching the child right in the face, sending a few teeth flying, blood splattering all over his face, and rendering him immediately unconscious. Now watch. Vera flipped Fuhai onto his back, and everyone watched as all the damage from the paper cut, and that punch, healed in no time, returning Fuhai to how he was prior. Couldn't you have just told him to fall asleep? Fu asked. This much faster, Vera said. Now, as I was saying, when he goes unconscious, quirk has no obstacles and can activate just fine. Heal all injuries. When he wake back up, quirk no work again. That makes things difficult. Izuku sighed. Since this was a mental issue, that means there wouldn't be any easy solutions. What's worse is that since Fuhai's quirk would reactivate every time he slept, that meant they couldn't use any sort of anti-anxiety or antidepressants on him either. Healing quirks tended to not mix well with any sort of medicine or drug, as the quirk would label that as a foreign substance akin to a disease, and thus remove it. And since effective antidepressant and anti-anxiety medicines had to stay in your system for a long time to work, that meant Fuhai was pretty screwed. All right, I'll talk to Run and see what we can do, Izuku said. Yeah, the kid is pretty screwed, Rin said after Izuku explained the situation to him. Ugh, hi. Izuku groaned as he let himself deflate into his couch. Sorry, but a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to mental health nowadays is done with medications, Rin explained. You can provide the best therapy possible, but it won't matter if the patient is not in at least somewhat, rational state of mind. Now Fuhai isn't a lost cause or anything. It's just going to be extremely hard to work with him if he's stuck in a constant state of paranoia. Now, I'm not suggesting you remove his quirk permanently, not at all, but don't you have some super secret technology that lets you turn off quirks temporarily? Izuku shook his head. No, we've been experimenting with that for a while. Using Aizawa's quirk factor to create fractals with his power, and trying to create a device that can neutralize quirks. Unfortunately, the fractal keeps neutralizing itself as well, making it completely unusable. At the moment, our science team has little to show for their efforts. Well, then our only option is to try and work with him as he is, Rin said. Try to keep him as calm as possible, while not keeping him in a bubble. If he gets used to living like that, he may not be able to cope with living normally. And do keep in mind that the main goal is to get him to a point where the psychosomatic-related issues subside. Thanatophobia is a fear pretty much everyone has to deal with at all times, and health anxiety is typically a lifelong issue. It's more a matter of managing it than getting rid of it. Izuku sighed and took a sip of his coffee, looking frustratedly into the cup. Is there anything else I can do? Even if I can't fix the problem, can I at least make it easier for him? The poor boy is suffering, and he'll have to suffer a while longer, Rin replied casually, although Izuku could faintly see a bit of frustration in his expression as well. Healing comes with time, and until then, he'll have to learn how to deal with the pain and move on with his life. It's harsh, and it's awful to experience. But so long as you provide the right support, he will get through this, Izuku. He will become stronger. I promise you. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX walked in. Hey Ken, do you mind if Alice runs an experiment on you? Nara asked. Both Ken and Tinko stopped and gave the girls a befuddled look. Okay, who starts a conversion like that? Also, what the heck do you mean experiment? Ken asked. Just a quirk experiment. It should be fine, Nara explained. You're not going to tell me what it is? Ken asked. You know how Alice's quirk works. If I tell you what's going to happen, it won't happen. Nara groaned. Just say yes, doofus. Do you think I'd suggest it to you if I thought you'd get hurt? Yes. Ken deadpanned. Badly hurt. Nara rephrased. Fair enough, go ahead. But you owe me a favor later, Ken said before he and Tenko went back to gaming. All right, you can go ahead, Nara told Alice in English. Just like that? Alice asked, raising an eyebrow at how easy it was to get that permission. Yeah, Ken's a massive idiot whose brain fell out of his head a long time ago, and wouldn't know self-preservation if it smacked him in the face and crawled down his throat, Nara said in English with a massive shit-eating grin on her face. Just because I don't know what you're saying, doesn't mean I don't know what you're saying. Ken huffed, knowing his sister was making fun of him in another language. It was training time, and Ken and Sanson had decided to have a quick spar. Okay, I should make quick work of her, Ken thought. But maybe I can finally blow her away with forearms. And in that moment of impulsiveness, Ken slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix and turned into forearms. Wait a minute, this was a terrible idea. Why did I do this? Ken wondered, regretting his decision the second he couldn't take it back. Sanson also looked confused, but just shrugged before charging at him. Ken punched down at her, but naturally, his fist did nothing, and she wrapped herself around his body, leaving him no leverage whatsoever, before wrapping around his throat and started choking him. Ack. Bad idea. This was a bad idea. Ken gasped as he struggled for air, trying to move his arms to pull Sanson off him, but Sanson had him wound up tight. I should have turned into an eye guy. Maybe it's not too late. I know we can swap forms. I saw Nara do it. Come on. Swap. 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 Then in a flash of green, Ken turned from forearms to eye guy. Yes. Ken immediately started moving the eyes on his body and blasted Sanson with freezing lasers, turning her to ice. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr the frozen girl to shatter off of him and fall to the ground. Haha. Yes. Then, in a flash of red, Ken turned back to his base form. Huh. Ken looked down at himself, confused as to why he transformed back so quickly. It worked. Wow. Ken looked over at the entrance and saw Nara standing there, having been watching the whole time, alongside Alice. What worked? Do you remember what we asked you yesterday? About that experiment. Nara asked him. Oh yeah. Wait, does that have to do with me swapping transformations? Ken asked. Yeah. You know what happened to Fuhai and his quirk, right? Nara said, getting a nod from her brother. Well, since the mind can make quirks act differently, and Alice can affect the mind, she thought that maybe she could make quirks act differently than how they normally do. And her first idea was making your swap transformations. We know it's possible, we just weren't able to do it on command. But with Alice's quirk, she was able to make you believe you could do it, so hard that you were actually able to do it. Huh. Ken was completely lost. Ugh. She made you think you could do something, so you were able to do it. Nara simplified. Oh, Ken finally got it. But I didn't think about turning back to normal. That might just be what happens if we swap forms. It happened to me too, remember? Nara recalled. Well, that's lame. That means that swapping forms is a complete bust. Ken groaned. Nara rolled her eyes. Or maybe we just need to get used to doing it. We can't come to any conclusions yet. But this is huge. It means we can make Fuhai's quirk activate anytime we need it to, so long as he doesn't know what we're doing. Or we can change how other people's quirks work when we need to, although we still don't fully understand how it works. And I doubt Izuku would be happy if you kept experimenting on people without them knowing, which is the only way her quirk works. Ken pointed out. Yeah, it's going to be a bit tricky, Nara said. But it could come in handy in an emergency. Also, it's really interesting. I need to tell G and Fu about this. She's going to flip. Try not to have a heart attack, dweeb. I'm going to go and thaw out Sanson. Ken said. You ready, Eri? Ren asked the small girl, as they once again stood outside the tomb of the Shu Has Sakai. Eri nodded and took Ren's hand. And without further delay, the two entered the tomb once more. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX deeper into the tomb than before, they encountered more bird-masked cultists and quickly took care of them with a combination of gunfire and actual fire from Ares' persona. The tomb seemed structured like a maze, with multiple twists and turns leading to nowhere. However, Ares' familiarity with the place made it a bit easier. Eventually, they reached another distinct room. This room was filled with torture devices, iron maidens, stretching racks, etc., and blood stains littered the floor. Standing in the center of the room were two more giant birds. One had long, black, greasy feathers and wore a fur necklace with bottles tied to it. It smelled so strongly of alcohol that even just standing on the other side of the room from it made the two of them nauseous. The other one had on a black hat and a long black cloak. A much simpler, but still unnerving design. Well, hick, look who's back. The drunken bird said as they came in. So the eternal sacrifice has returned. Tell me, are you ready to make up for your sins? The hatted bird asked. No, Aerie shouted, finding herself answering without meaning to. She also found herself getting dizzier and dizzier as it became harder to focus. Rin was also being affected by this dizziness, but he quickly took out his gun and fired at the birdies, only to miss every shot. Crap. Raw. The drunken flew up and then shot vomit at them. Aerie summoned her persona, grabbed onto Ren's leg, and teleported them both away. Into the air, a few feet to the left, causing them to fall on their faces. Ugh, sorry. Aerie groaned. It was hard to know where to teleport to when the room was spinning. It's fine, Ren assured her. Is it? Your carelessness has gotten people killed before, hasn't it, Aerie? The hatted bird asked. Once again, Aerie was forced to answer. Why, yes. Tears poured out of Aerie's mind as the foggy memory of killing her own father played through her head. And do you remember how old you were, Aerie? How little control you had over that? Ren asked her. Have you ever, even once, thought of using your quirk to hurt someone for the sake of hurting them? No, never, Aerie shouted, as she slowly managed to stand back up, using raw determination to compensate for her lack of balance at the moment. Not even once. I want to use my quirk to help everyone. What a load of bull, hick. The drunk bird shot out another shot of vomit at her. As the vomit approached her, Aerie closed her eyes and focused on her quirk and her spirit, forcing both to surface as her quirk activated, and her persona came out once again, shooting out a fireball at the vomit, while her quirk cleansed her body of any ailment. Free of the dizziness and nausea, Aerie teleported above the drunken bird using her persona and threw down a fireball at it, and the bird's greasy, alcohol-filled body immediately burst into flames. Call Ga? Killing again, Aerie. Do you really think that that curse is yours? Can ever do anything but destroy? The hatted bird asked before Aerie teleported in front of him, and Dantes shoved his arm into his mouth. I don't know, Aerie answered honestly, with a determined look on her face. But I'm going to try. Now shut up. Please. Boom. Aerie's persona shot fired directly into the bird's maw, and then after a few moments her persona vanished, smoke flying out of the bird's mouth before it disappeared. Ugh. With the shadows dead, Ren was finally free of the drunken status effect, and after taking a few seconds to get himself back together, he turned his focus to Aerie, who was struggling to try and turn off her quirk again. She breathed deeply as she pictured a dam stopping a river, and slowly, her horn started to shrink as her quirk finally turned off. Phew. Aerie breathed a sigh of relief and touched her horn, reassuring herself that her quirk was in fact off. You did good, Aerie, Ren said. He knew better than to touch her so soon after she used her quirk, so he just smiled. Thank you. Aerie smiled back, feeling a little better now that that was dealt with. And all the fatigue she'd built up from all the walking was gone as well. She was back in top condition, all thanks to her quirk. Let's keep going, please. All right, but first, is there any place in here that'd be safe enough for us to hide so I can take a break? While Aerie was back in perfect shape, Ren was not. And while he loved Aerie's enthusiasm, he didn't want to end up failing her in a dire situation because he was tired. Best to take their time. Oh, sorry. Aerie tried to think about any place she'd consider safe in this heck hole. After thinking for a little bit, she grabbed Ren's leg again and teleported them away. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX details of the place. In the center of the room was a child-sized, empty coffin with a lid on the side. Surrounding the coffin, placed in what looked to be some kind of ritualistic pattern, were toys, all of them having bloody handprints on them. Given the toys, it was rather obvious what this room was. This is your room, or at least how you envisioned it. Rin deduced. Eri nodded. They won't come for us yet. It was dark outside. Overhaul never took me out at night. I see. Then we should be able to rest here for a bit, Rin said as he took a seat on the back of the wall. Eri decided to take a seat a couple feet away from him, and the two sat in silence for a little before Rin spoke up. So what do you want to do when we're done? Huh? When we're done? Eri repeated before taking a moment to think. I think I want to get some apple juice. I was always a cranberry juice kid, Rin admitted. You gonna have anything to eat with that juice? I don't know. I'm not really hungry right now, Eri said as she looked at the warped reflection of her old room. Fair, Rin said. So you watch anything good last night? I watched a concert, Eri said. The singer had such a beautiful voice. It makes me wish I could sing like that. Well, why don't you? Rin asked. I'm sure your sisters would let you join their band. I'm not sure if I can actually sing well, Eri admitted sheepishly. I don't want to be a bother. I'd think it'd bother them more to know you're holding yourself back over something like that, Rin told her. Hey, Mr. Akira, how do you know when you're being selfish and when you're not? Eri asked. Sometimes I think some things are selfish, but then everyone says they aren't and I don't know how to tell. Well, there is no surefire way to know. Everyone has their own sense of right and wrong. But there are two good ways, Rin explained. The first is to put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, do you think what you're asking or what you're doing is annoying or bad or unreasonable? And the next best way is to just ask. As I said, neither of these will work 100% of the time. Sometimes you'll just have to guess. But so long as you don't do anything with overly selfish or harmful intent, then even if you do ask or do the wrong thing, so long as you apologize and learn from your mistakes, it should work out most of the time. Eri didn't get a direct response, instead choosing to sit in silence and let those words sink in. After a few more minutes of rest, they decided to go a bit deeper into the tomb. Mr. Akira, maybe I should just teleport us to my shadow, Eri said, offered as she and Rin kept marching on. I don't think that's a good idea, Rin explained. Normally getting to the ruler's shadow is the important part, but this place has other boss shadows as well. It'd be best to take them down now before we try and confront your shadow. Okay, Eri said before they finally made it to another room. This room had square-shaped arena in the center with bleachers on either side, filled with bird-masked cultists. And in the center were 3 more birds. Well, one of them was a bird. The other 2 were massive muscular men with bird heads, and one of them also had brown mane-like hair. The bird wore a robe and seemed to have his eyes closed all the time. As Akira and Eri jumped into the ring, the bird cultist roared, "Rough her up. Show that brat who's boss. Beat that freak within an inch of her life." While the spectators shouted, the brown-haired bird man spoke up. So little Eri finally grew a spine. Well, let's see what you're made of. Try and make this fun for me. We're gonna crush you. The largest of the birdmen shouted. If you surrender now, we can end this peacefully. The eyes-closed bird said calmly. No, Eri shouted. Well then let's get to the action, the huge birdman said before charging at them. Rin and Eri opened fire, shooting fire at it using their personas, but it did very little as the huge birdman reached Eri, raising his foot to try and crush her, but Eri teleported behind it just in time. Bang! Gah! Rin shot the birdman in the eye, blinding it. Eri summoned her persona and sent it to grab onto the massive birdman, so she could teleport it into the pit, but the moment she did, she stopped and her persona was unsummoned as she felt her energy get drained. Careful, Eri. Your persona is attached to you. If either of you touch him, he'll drain your energy. Rin warned her and then had to jump back to dodge a punch from the brown-haired bird. The brown-haired bird lunged forward and launched a flurry of blows at Rin, and this time he couldn't dodge them. Gah! Rin gasped as he felt his stomach nearly get caved in, and he was sent flying into the wall, cratering it. Mr. Akira, Eri cried out in concern, getting distracted for a moment, letting the massive bird land a kick on her, sending her tumble off the ring and into the void. Eri quickly summoned her persona and teleported back into the center of the ring, where she saw the brown-haired bird standing over her, arm cocked back. Rin shot his grappling hook, aiming for the birdman's leg, but a barrier popped up, blocking it from reaching it. The brown-haired bird sent a flurry of punches down at Eri, but she teleported away just before the attacks could reach her, appearing behind the eyes-closed bird. She sent out a fire attack using her persona, but the bird put a barrier just in time to block it. Rin jumped back into the ring and shot at the massive bird, the bullets doing nothing but get its attention as it charged towards the therapist. That's when Rin pulled out a flashbang, tossed it up, and then closed his eyes before dashing between his legs. Bang! Kawu! The Birdman cried as he was blinded by light. Eri, now, with me, Rin shouted. Yes. Eri summoned her persona, and both she and Rin shot a fireball at the massive Birdman's back. The balls combined together made a larger one, which slammed the massive Birdman's back, sending him flying off the edge of the arena and into the pit. 1 down, 2 to go, Rin said as he looked at his 2 remaining opponents. The brown-haired Birdman charged at the both of them and unleashed another flurry of blows. Rin jumped back to avoid it, while Eri teleported away, appearing behind the brown-haired Birdman and grabbing his leg before teleporting them over the pit and dropping him into it. Damn it! The Birdman shouted as he fell into the abyss. Eri teleported back onto the arena, and she and Rin turned to face their last opponent. Stay back. The bird stuttered as he put up a barrier around himself. Eri looked at Rin and nodded, before teleporting in front of the barrier, touching it, and then teleporting the barrier away. What? Before the Birdman could put up another barrier, Rin shot him in the head, killing it instantly. Amateur, Rin said as blew the smoke away from his gun and holstered it in stylish fashion. Phew, we did it, Eri said, breathing a sigh of relief. Boo-boo, the audience shouted as they started jumping out of their seats and into the arena, while even more cultists rushed into the room. Looks like it's time for us to go, Rin said as he grabbed hold of Eri, and the 2 teleported out of the palace. Well, it seems like we've made good progress, Rin said. Why yeah, Eri said, looking a bit apprehensive. What's wrong? Rin asked, knowing that she probably knew something he didn't. The other 8 bullets were always with him, Eri said. And he's probably with my shadow. I see. So the next time we head in there, we'll have to be ready for the final confrontation, Rin said. Are you going to be okay, seeing him again? Eri took a deep breath before responding. I will be. It had been a while since the house received new arrivals. Given the threats that were out there, he'd decided that from now on the kids would arrive via portal. He'd rather have dealt with all the threats before taking in any more kids, but it didn't seem like that would be happening. And so here Izuku was, waiting outside the house for 3 new arrivals. Soon, a portal opened, and 3 children came through. And Izuku had to do a double take, because he was pretty sure the universe was fucking with him right now. The first kid was a young girl with short, spiky blonde hair and red eyes. Quite literally looked like either a younger Mitsuki or a female Kid Bakugo. This was Yashina. The next kid had droopy blonde hair that covered one of his eyes, which were also red. This was Shuku. And the last kid was literally just the spitting image of Kid Bakugo. This was Hanabi. So this is our new place, huh? Yashina said as walked out of the portal and looked at the house, an almost villainous smirk appearing on her face. Yeah, I could get used to living in a place like this. It's so cool. Hanabi gushed as he looked at the house with sparkles in his eyes. Boom. Suddenly fireworks shot out of Hanabi's fingers, sending him flying into the sky and knocking over the 2 kids. Oh. Hanabi screamed in terror as he started falling back towards the ground before he got distracted. Oh wow, the sky is really pretty today. That's when suddenly Hanabi's body was surrounded by a black outline, and he stopped falling. You've been here for less than a few seconds, and already you almost died? I think that's a record, Seikyo said as she floated down, joining Izuku by his side, and letting Hanabi back down gently. Hey, you trying to pick a fight? Yashina snarled as she grabbed Hanabi by the collar, her body starting to glow ominously. Sorry, my quirk goes off when I get excited, Habani said, and suddenly fireworks fired out his fingers into the sky, exploding in the air. See, Yashina, please calm down. We don't want your quirk going off by accident, Izuku said. The young girl turned and glared at Izuku, letting go of Habani and marching up to her new caretaker, glowing even brighter. Listen here. Nobody tells me what to do, especially not some slub who's only strong cause he's rich. Seikyo glared at the girl. You will pay my grandfather respect, or else you'll find your stay here very unpleasant. What's that? Little miss which bitch wants to have a go at me, Yashina said, giving the grim girl a vicious smirk as her body started smoking. You want to fight? As a matter of fact, I do, Sakio hissed, before using her telekinesis to send Yashina flying deep into the forest. Oh, Izuku said, knowing what was about to happen next. Kaboom! A massive explosion burst out from deeper within the forest, destroying trees, shaking the earth, and leaving behind a giant flash and mushroom cloud. Izuku and the kids had to cover their faces to protect themselves from the strong winds that resulted from the blast. Wow! Hanabi raised his hands up in excitement after witnessing such an epic blast, causing more fireworks to fire out of his fingers and into the sky. Ugh! Sakio, please calm her down, and try to keep any fights away from the house. Izuku sighed. Yes, S-. Before Sakio could finish that sentence, suddenly Yashina flew into her, sending them both crashing into the house. Izuku sighed again. So today's just gonna be one of those days. Boom, boom, boom. More explosions rang out inside the house before they saw Yashina and Sakio fly out the roof, away from the house. After breaking who knows how many things. Well, let's just hope they didn't break anything important, Izuku said. Let's go inside. Yeah, Hanabi shouted, accidentally shooting another firework at the house, blowing up a section of it. I'm going to die here, Shuku said. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX head out. Who is it? Hanabi. Hanabi said on the other side. Kay gasped. A new friend. She immediately opened the door and was greeted by the cheerful sight of Hanabi. Hi. Want to be friends? Hanabi asked excitedly. Boy, do I. Kay answered. Yeah. The two were about to high-five when suddenly fireworks exploded out of Hanabi's fingers again, blowing part of the roof and some parts of Kay's room. Kaboom. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Hanabi immediately apologized. I shoot fireworks when I get too excited. It's fine. Hey, let's go meet the others. Kay suggested. Really? Awesome. Hanabi fist-pumped, launching another firework through the roof. Kaboom. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX who all happened to bear a resemblance to Katsuki Bakugo, and all happened to have explosion quirks. Joel continued. Boom, boom, boom. And none of them are related to him or each other. Joel finished. The longer I live, the more I'm convinced that there is a God, and he's intent on messing with me specifically, Izuku concluded. Boom, 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 boom. The house continued to shake as the sound of Hanabi making new friends and Seikyo and Yashina's fight resonated throughout the land. Boom. Joel backed up as another firework went through the floor and then the roof before exploding in the air. Okay, that's going to have to stop. Hopefully it'll get less frequent once the newness and excitement wears off, Izuku commented, as more fireworks went through his office. Hopefully. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll figure something out. Boom, boom, boom. Ugh. Shuku groaned as he lay in his bed. He'd not gotten a lot of sleep last night. He was too anxious about being moved, and so he was hoping to finally get some sleep when got to his room. But Hanabi's constant fireworks show was keeping him awake, and he could feel his temper steadily rising. Knock, knock, knock. Shuku let out a long, suffering sigh before getting up, opening the door, and finding Hanabi and Kei outside of it. Oh, you're the other kid who came with me. Hanabi realized. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. It's Shuku, and you're the kid who's been keeping me awake. Shuku said passive-aggressively. Sorry about that. Hey, you want to be friends? Shuku asked immediately. If I say yes, will you go away? Shuku asked. I don't say that. Why don't we all play a game? Like a tag, Kei suggested. I love tags, Hanabi said, making Shuku move aside to avoid another blast of fireworks that blew a hole through his room. And that was when Shuku had had enough. His hair suddenly spiked up as he clenched his teeth and took out a small rock from pocket, making it glow red, and then throwing it in front of Kei and Hanabi, slamming the door shut. Shuku then climbed back into bed and pulled the covers back over himself. Kaboom! The rock exploded, blowing up his door and blasting Kei and Hanabi away, knocking both of them out. Oh! Shuku sighed as he enjoyed the silence, his hair going back down. He was sure he'd get yelled at for losing his temper again. But for now, it was worth it. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX sweating and breathing heavily, inside of a massive crater, while Sakio stood in front of her, unharmed and unfazed. How are you still standing? It's called being immortal, Sakio said. Doing damage to my body does next to nothing to affect me. Bullshit. Your powers are bullshit. Yashina barked as she started to glow before the glow faded, and she passed out. Ugh. Sakio picked up the unconscious girl with her telekinesis and started flying towards the house. You're going to have a real rough time here. Yashina, quirk, self-destruct, allows her to create explosions from her body or even individual body parts. For whatever reason, her body's immune to her own explosions. However, it uses up quite a bit of her energy with each one. Due to her temper, she has a habit of having complete meltdowns and blowing up everything around her. Hanabi, quirk, firecracker, allows the user to shoot fireworks from their fingers. Each finger shoots out a different color of fireworks. When his hand is closed, he can shoot out a combined multicolored blast. Shooting too many will damage his arms due to the force. However, he has a hard time controlling his quirk when he is excited. Side note, he is easily excitable. Shuku, quirk, implosion, allows the user to make any object he touches with all 5 fingers explode. In order to make things explode, he must fill them with his hate, his desire to destroy. The angrier, more hateful, and the more he wants to destroy something, the more energy he can imbue into an object, thus making the explosion stronger. Also, the larger the object, the more energy can be imbued into it, thus making the explosion stronger. Yashina was casually walking down the halls of the house, eating a whole bell pepper, when suddenly someone called her out. You there? Huh? Yashina turned around and saw Kiba standing there with Hinata at her side, both looking displeased. You're the one that showed caretaker disrespect, were you not? Kiba asked. Caretaker? You mean the quirkless guy who runs this place? Yashina sneered. So what if I did? Then I suggest you go to him and prostrate yourself to show your remorse. Kiba threatened and glared at the girl. Otherwise I'll have to challenge you to a duel. You guys like to fight around here, huh? Yashina scowled as her body started smoking. Normally I don't hate that, but you better not have that same immortality crap that the witch bitch had. I'm not immortal. If you do enough damage to me, I will die, Kiba admitted. Or in this case, be forced to submit. However, I doubt someone like you could ever get me to that point. Oh yeah, name the time and place. Yashina said, her hands exploding as she punched her palm, the shockwave breaking a nearby window. Unless you want to do this right now. TCH, unlike you, I'm not a wild beast who's ready to destroy everything around them. Our battle will take place an hour from now, in the simulation room. Kiba told her, before turning around. You better be prepared. Those who disrespect the caretaker will face the wrath of the queen. Bitch, if there's a queen in this place, it's me, Yashina claimed. An hour later, as promised, the 2 combatants entered the sim room, which had changed to look like a gladiatorial arena. Kiba appeared in demon lord-like armor, red and black armor, while Yashina was wearing a throwaway shirt and shorts. PFT, what are you 5? What's with that outfit? Yashina mocked. Kiba scowled. This is my battle outfit. Get a good look, because you won't be able to look at it for long. Yeah, because I'm about to blow it to pieces, Yashina said as she started to smoke. Come on, let's get this shit started. Begin. Hinata, who was acting as ref, signaled over a loudspeaker. Boom. Kiba charged forward at Yashina, and at the same time, Yashina created an explosion from her back, sending her flying forward. Neither ready for their opponent to approach them so fast, they ended up colliding against each other in the air. Kaboom! Yashina reacted first and unleashed an explosion from the front of her body, sending Kiba slamming into the wall of the arena. Kiba growled and had Yashina's shadow wrap around Yashina, before having all the other shadows join in, creating a shadow cocoon. Boom. That was immediately blown away, as Yashina unleashed a full-body explosion, getting the shadows off of her. Yashina crouched down and had the bottom of her feet explode, sending her rocketing at Kiba while cocking her arm back as it started to glow. Kiba sprouted wings and flew up just before Yashina punched the wall she had been in, her first exploding and breaking apart the entire wall, making the whole arena shake. She certainly has power, Kiba noted begrudgingly. And talent too. Yashina had her legs explode, sending her flying up into the air past Kiba, before releasing explosions from her front, making her fly at Kiba again. Kiba dodged, and Yashina went flying towards the ground at high speed. Yashina unleashed multiple explosions from her front, slowing herself down before she landed, so she didn't hurt herself, only for Kiba to fly down and flick her in the back of the head, sending her flying face first into a wall. While the girl was dazed, she created shadows around her arms and legs. I hope you know that had I actually punched you there, this battle would be over, Kiba told her. This only served to piss Yashina off, and she exploded the front of her body, sending her body flying at Kiba, slamming into her before she unleashed a full-body explosion, point blank. Kaboom! The entire arena was lit up, as the explosion shook the sim room itself, causing some of the holograms and other functions to glitch out for a second. When the light from the explosion died down, the arena had been partially destroyed, and in the center was a giant smoking crater. When the smoke started to clear, Yashina could be seen on top of Kiba, holding her down by the throat. The blonde girl was panting and dizzy, while Kiba's body was covered in burns. I win, Yashina snarled with a malicious smirk on her face, which promptly vanished when she saw Kiba quickly regenerate all the damage that had been done to her. What the? You said you weren't immortal? I'm not. Eventually, I'll be exhausted by blood storage, and I could die, Kiba explained. But again, I doubt you could do that much damage to me. Now then. Wham! Kiba then punched Yashina in the face, sending her flying into the ceiling, and once again making her head spin. Then Kiba summoned more shadows and shaped them into fists, and then started having them punch Yashina. 1,000 demon fists. Ga? Pa. Act. Yashina got more and more bloody and bruised. As soon as she was able to think properly again, she exploded once more. Kaboom! Yashina's explosion was so strong that it blew apart the roof, making pieces of it fall apart onto the ground, as the simulation began to fall apart, and the room turned blank white. Kiba dodged the piece of the roof that was now falling down around her, only for Yashina to slam down in front of her, and then explode again, sending her flying back. But Yashina exploded her back and tackled Kiba while she was flying, and then started unleashing a symphony of full-body explosions. Boom, 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 boom. The explosions continued, shaking the entire room and causing it to collapse more and more, until eventually, the explosions finally stopped. In the center of the room, Yashina was in a giant crater, holding what looked to be a burnt corpse. Kiba's skin had completely melted off, and one of her legs, an arm, and a hand had been blown apart. Her torso and stomach had been blown open, revealing burnt organs, and her head looked more like a skull with bits of hair and skin attached to it. Ha 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 ha, Yashina painted, having used pretty much all her energy in that barrage of explosions. She couldn't move her body, her vision was blurry, and she was barely staying conscious. At first, when she saw Kiba's body, her heart skipped a beat. Oh holy shit, did she really die? Thankfully, Kiba soon started to regenerate, her body quickly restoring itself. And in a scene Yashina would see in her nightmares for a long, long time, Kiba's skull-like face moved in, bit down on her neck, and started sucking her blood as she regenerated, making her properly pass out. After a while of sucking her blood, Kiba found herself getting pulled off of Yashina by Tokoshi. Wawa dash. Kiba was also in a daze. She couldn't recall experiencing such agonizing pain, and even after regenerating, she was still out of it. Izuku ran into the room and looked at the kids. Damn it, I should have known this would go badly. Take Yashina to the doctor now. Izuku ordered and got Kiba to go to her room and get her more blood. As his orders were carried out, Izuku looked around the room. He'd expected it to get destroyed, but still. His head of funds was not going to be happy. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX bed. You used far too much firepower in that battle against Kiba. Izuku told her sternly. You're lucky it was Kiba you were fighting against, otherwise you would have killed nearly anyone else. And you're even more lucky the pain you caused her didn't make her lose control, otherwise you'd be dead. TCH, I didn't even win, and you're saying I hit her too hard? Yashina scoffed. There are things more important than winning, like not killing your fellow housemates. Izuku told her. If Kiba had decided to go all out like that against you and not wear her limiter, then you'd be dead. Yashina's eyes widened. Wear her what? Her limiter. Kiba's strength is beyond her control, so she wears a limiter to make her weaker and slower. Izuku said as he started calling something on his phone, so that way she can go about her day without destroying everything and killing everyone she fights. I lost, and she wasn't even at full power, Yashina said, her pupils shrinking as her body started to glow again. Fortunately, Izuku was prepared for this, and a portal opened up next to her, and Izuku pushed her through it before it closed. Boom. The sound of Yashina exploding elsewhere sounded out, and Izuku sighed. This is going to be painful. Yashina brushed her teeth angrily. Today was utter shit. She'd been challenged to a fight for the second time and lost a second time, because the person she'd been fighting was some kind of bioweapon freak. Again, Yashina had heard that this place was a house of monsters, but she didn't think they meant that literally. Honestly, she wasn't sure whether to be flattered or offended that she was put in the same category as these freaks. Knock, 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 knock. Oh, what now? Yashina spat out her toothpaste and then went over to the door. Who the hell is it? And what the fuck do you want? Hello there. My name is Yonda. May you please open the door so we might converse, face to face? Please. Yonda asked in her sickly sweet voice. May you please get the fuck out of my head? Yashina thought. Afraid I can't. Literally, I can't. Now please open the door. Yonda asked, a bit more firmly. Fuck off, I don't feel like dealing with any more of you freaks today. Yashina said as she turned away, ready to go to bed. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping to face you in combat, but it looks like you're far more cowardly than I expected. Yonda said in the most condescending voice Yashina had ever heard. And just like that, she started steaming. Name the time and place, bitch. A map slid under the door. Just give me an hour. I'll be ready for you. Get ready to eat, dirt brainy bitch. Yashina growled. Yashina wandered around the woods at night, trying to read the map, but the dark made it hard. Damn it. How the hell does this bitch expect me to find her with this? Wham! Suddenly Yashina felt something hit the back of her head, and a horrible sound made her brain feel like mashed potatoes. Ack! Yashina was barely conscious after that nasty surprise attack, and with her vision blurry, she saw Yonda walk up in front of her with her hammer, raise it up, and then everything went black. When Yashina woke up, her vision was still blurry. In fact, everything was blurry. Her vision, her hearing, her thoughts. She could see Yonda in front of her, with a smile on her face. Yashina should be angry with her, right? She hit her with a surprise attack and took her somewhere. But for some reason, she didn't care about that. She didn't care about anything at the moment. Her mind felt like it was blank. Why did she even bother waking up? She was tired. She was about to fall back asleep when suddenly she got splashed by water, waking her back up. Not yet. I need you to feel this for a while longer, Yonda told her, as she held her super soaker filled with ice-cold water. Part of Yashina wanted to stop this, to ask questions, to fight back. But that part of her was smothered, and all she felt was apathy. And she tried to go back to sleep, only to get blasted again with more water. This continued for a while, until eventually, Yonda figured she'd had enough, and let her fall asleep. Another splash of water woke Yashina up. She gasped for air. What, where, how? There we go, back to normal, said a familiar voice in her head, as Yonda's feet walked into view. It was then Yashina started to become more aware, namely that she was on the ground, in some kind of cave, with Yonda looming over her in a threatening manner, with a smile that promised only horror. Speaking of horror, she also recalled what happened before she passed out. That horrible feeling of apathy, like all her hopes and dreams, her aspirations, her very self, ceased to matter, and for a while, she was just a hollow shell, existing, but not feeling, nor wishing to feel. Wah! Yashina threw up, and she's not sure if it's because of remembering that horrible experience, or because the pain in her head and all over her body was now also catching up with her. Whoops! Yonda jumped back, barely avoiding getting vomited on. That was a close one. What the fuck was that? Yashina asked, her fear and panic evident in both her face and her thoughts. Yonda's smile just grew, and she walked over to the side and kicked Yashina onto her back. It was then that Yashina saw that one of the apathy had been standing behind her. Yashina could feel the dreadful aura of that monster in front of her, and instinctively tried to get up to run, but her legs weren't working. And she's not sure if it was out of fear, because Yonda broke them while she was sleeping. Either was plausible. This is one of the grim Yami created. You may have seen a few wandering around. This one is called the apathy, named as such due to its ability to drain a person's will. Yonda explained. Keep it the fuck away from me. Yashina tried to crawl away, her body too exhausted to use her quirk. Yonda got in front of her, hammer in hand. Don't worry, you won't be getting another round of punishment tonight. You see, as much as I would love to spend the rest of the night punishing you, I am trying to be a better person, so you only get a little glimpse of what I wanted to do to you. Yonda said, and for once in Yashina's life, she was truly terrified of someone. Why? What did I do to you? Yashina cried. Yonda took a deep breath. How do I say this? The Midoriya Foundation home is a lot of things to a lot of people. To many living here, it's a safe haven. To many outside, it's as you said earlier, a house for monsters. A prison almost. For children too dangerous to be let loose with special supervision. Yonda looked down at her with a frown. You see, the rest of the world, they're scared of us. They used to kill kids like us because of that. Until doing that became too distasteful for the public. So now they put a bunch of monsters together and let us live in peace. Far away from them. Yonda kneeled down to look her in the eyes. But let's be clear, those people, the normal people, they don't really care about what happens to us. That's why they let us rot in those DOC cells. That's why they put you in the same house as someone like me. You see, you're here because you hurt people by accident. I'm here because I hurt people on purpose, and I loved every second of it. We're different in that regard, even if we're still both monsters. Yonda then smiled gently at her. But you know the difference between this place and the DOC? It's him. Midoriya Izuku, our loving caretaker. As someone who can read thoughts, let me tell you, he's one of the few people who could ever love monsters like us. And yet, you disrespected him. You spit in the face of the one person who loves you. And I do mean the one person. Right now, Izuku is the only person who cares about you even a little. Everyone you knew outside either hates or fears you. I know your parents wish they never stopped using protection. And that attitude of yours isn't making you any friends here. Which is probably why no one warned you that following me into the woods in the dead of night was a bad idea. You see, this is MY house, and I'm very protective of it. I've taken it upon myself to make sure everyone is as they should be, and that everyone is happy and healthy. Yonda continued. But then here you come into MY house, with such a horribly wrong mindset, thinking you're top dog, disrespecting our beloved father, and causing so many problems. I'm trying a nicer person, but these are things I just couldn't let stand. Yonda looked back up at the apathy, making Yashina freeze up, worried she might have it attack her again. But you're such a strong-willed person, the kind that normal punishments won't work on. So I had to get creative, which was fun for me. Oh, when I put my mind to it, the hardest part of picking just one thing to do to you. But again, I had to hold myself back. I trust you've learned your lesson, or do you need another hug from our ghoulish friend here? Why, you're insane, Yashina said, and almost immediately regretted it, as a grin appeared on Yonda's face, and under the moonlit sky, she truly looked like a demon. Another round of punishment it is. Yonda sighed, although the smile on her face made it clear she was enjoying every second of this. That's enough. Suddenly, hope swelled in Yashina's heart, as she saw Izuku running towards them, with a furious expression, and suddenly Yonda was the one looking scared. Father. Yonda stuttered. How did you find? Fu told me you and Yashina left the house. And I found you using the seers. Izuku explained. Now would you like to explain yourself, young lady? I thought we said you wouldn't do things like this anymore. I tried, father. I really did try to hold myself back, and I did. To an extent. Yonda explained. Izuku looked down at Yashina, who was crying on the ground, crawling towards him, her eyes begging for help, and then glared at Yonda. In what world is this holding yourself back? My world. Did you see what she did to Kiba? And her thoughts? Ugh. Every one of them inspired a new way to make her repent. But I only did one. Yonda argued. There is no excuse for torturing another child like this, Izuku said as he picked up Yashina, who clung to him for dear life. You're to go right back to your room. And leave your hammer with Giza. You won't have access to it outside of training from now on. We'll discuss further punishment later. Izuku then turned and walked away. You have such a brilliant mind, Yonda. I wish you'd stop using it to find new ways to disappoint me. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX shaking like a leaf and dead silent. You know, despite what they say, you don't need to love or even like me, Izuku told her. In fact, I understand if you hate me because of what just happened. I'm so sorry. I should have watched over you better. Yashiana didn't understand. Despite her words, and despite what Izuku was saying, she could feel a certain warmth in his embrace that she'd never felt before. A feeling of safety, even her own quirk never afforded her. Yonda's words echoed in her mind. Midoriya, Izuku, our loving caretaker. As someone who can read thoughts, let me tell you, he's one of the few people who could ever love monsters like us. And yet, you disrespected him. You spit in the face of the one person who loves you. And I do mean the one person. Right now, Izuku is the only person who cares about you even a little. Maybe that psycho wasn't lying. The way everyone got so angry at her for disrespecting him suddenly made sense now. I'm sorry, Yashina whispered. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. Izuku reassured her. So long as you're with me, you're safe. I promise. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX behind her. Everything had gone to plan, breaking the girl's mind with the apathy, and then having Izuku come in and save her. The girl would surely behave better now, and get along with everyone else as a result. And yet, you have such a brilliant mind, Yonda. I wish you'd stop using it to find new ways to disappoint me. Yonda wiped away a few tears that managed to escape from her eyes. Disappointing Izuku always hurt, taking his trust and trampling on it. But she hadn't been lying at all. She had held herself back. She even made sure she got caught in the end, because she knew that she needed to get caught. All that mattered was breaking that girl in. It was for her own good. No one would appreciate what she'd done, namely, because she knew it was wrong. But in the long run, that girl would benefit from her actions. And yet, you have such a brilliant mind, Yonda. I wish you'd stop using it to find new ways to disappoint me. That one hurt, far more than she'd predicted. Kiba was enjoying a tea party outside with Shiroku and Kano, and naturally Hinata by her side. How are you feeling, Kiba? I never saw the tapes, but I could only imagine the amount of pain that brute put you through. Kano asked as she sipped her blood in her teacup. It was but a flesh wound. I'm fine now. Kiba fibbed. In truth, she still recalled the pain quite vividly, to the point where she could feel phantom pains at points. Even now, just talking about it made her have to force her smile to stay on her face. Anyway, Yo. And immediately Kiba's smile faded, as they looked to see Yashina approaching her. Oh, what do you want? Kiba nearly hissed. Yashina dug her hands in her pockets and looked away, taking a deep breath as she got ready to enter new territory. I'm sorry. That caused everyone to look at her surprise, Kiba most of all. Did I hear that right? You're sorry? Kiba asked in disbelief. Don't make a big deal out of it, Yashina growled. It's just, I'm sorry for going too far in our fight, and I'm sorry for calling you all freaks and monsters. I don't recall you doing that. Kiba pointed out. I did it in my head. So I'm sorry. Now I know what a real fucking freak looks like. The damn psycho-psychic. Yashina said, steaming at just mentioning that girl. Psycho-psychic? Kiba questioned. I believe she's referring to Yonda, my lady, Hinata explained. Ah, that makes sense. What did she do now? Kidnapping, blackmail? Or did she trick someone into beating you half to death? Kiba asked as she recalled tales of Yanda's mischief. I don't want to fucking talk about it. Yashina hissed as she started taking deep breaths to calm herself down and keep herself from literally exploding again. Look, there's my apology, take it or leave it. Oh, and I apologize to Izuka too. Guess it was a pretty shitty mood to bite the hand that feeds ya. Well, in that case, your apology is accepted, Kiba said. Are you sure about that, my lady? Hinata asked her, scowling at Yashina. What she did to you in battle was, in my humble opinion, unforgivable. It was an accident, and she apologized for it. Given my history, it would be hypocritical to deny her forgiveness in this case. Kiba told her, and so, I give you an official pardon on behalf of the Kingdom of Eternal Darkness. Yashina couldn't help but roll her eyes. Yeah, thanks. Anyway, see ya. As Yashina walked away, the girls continued their tea time. Well, that was a pleasant surprise, Kiba said. Although it makes me wonder what Yonda did to that poor girl to inspire such a change of heart, Shiruku asked. I don't want to think about it. I'll leave that responsibility to the caretaker. Kiba sighed. Although I wonder if that girl causes more or less problems for him at times. She truly is the darkness in the shape of a friend, Kano said. Darn it. That was a good line. I need to use that later. Kiba said, making a mental note of that. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Fuku, Netsu, Kin, Nis, Inu, Tinko, Lu, and Yuna. Yes, Yuna, as in the bear, who was currently playing against Shuku on Fuku's behalf. What the hell is going on? Shuku thought as he played against the bear in Tekken 15. His surprise cost him, and Yuna hit him with a low that led into a combo, taking the last of Shuku's health. KO, the announcer said. Ruh. Yuna cheered in celebration. Shuku pouted. I only lost that one because I was distracted. This time I'll win. Excuses. Ken mocked as the second round started. Fuku, how did you teach the bear to play fighting games again? Tinko asked. She just kinda learned by example, Fuku said, over the phone. Are we sure the bear doesn't have a quirk? Lo asked, still not believing what he was seeing. KO, the announcer said, as this time Shuka won. Although not easily. Humph. Yuna huffed, as she got herself ready for the next round. As the final round started up, the final member of the gaming crew, aside from Yonda who was grounded, arrived, and Amai walked in. Oh hey, there's another new guy. Hey Amai. Ken greeted me. Yeah, this is Shuku. He just showed up. He makes things explode. Yeah, that sounds about right, Amai said. Mind if I play the winner? Ken grinned. Sure, that sounds like a great idea. Trial by fire. Are you sure that's a good idea? Inu asked nervously. SHSSH, this is gonna be so funny. Ken snickered. KO, the announcer said. Player 1 wins. Yes. Shuka did a fist bump. Ruh. Yuna cried sadly at her loss. Don't be sad, Yuna, Tinko said as he petted the bear. You only lost because your control wasn't made for bears. Oh my gosh, how did I not think of that? A controller for bears. I need to get on that right now. Fuku said. All right, my turn. Controller, please. Amai said, gently asking for the control from Yuna, who kindly gave it to her and got head pats in return. Good girl. Now, with a swift transformation sequence, Amai entered gamer mode. Let's go. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Shuka thought as the two started selecting their characters. After picking the characters, the two started fighting. And like many before him, he got absolutely destroyed. Just decimated. Literally did not land a signal hit. KO. Player 2 wins. The announcer said as Amai finished the first and second round in less than a minute. Huh. Was all Shuku could say, his jaw hanging low as the shock of his decimation set in. Sigh. Yet another scrub trying to step on the queen. GG no spect. Get good. Amai taunted. For a moment there was silence, and then Shuku's head started to spike up, as his astonishment turned to rage. Gah! Shuku raised his controller up, making it glow red, and just as he was about to throw it at the TV, Lu grabbed it, teleported, and then teleported back. Boom. Nice job, Yami said, giving Lu the thumbs up. I want a rematch. Shuka demanded. Try all you want. It's gonna end the same, Amai said cockily. Give him a new controller. We're gonna lose a lot of these today, aren't we? Nis asked. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Hanabi gasped as he, K, Yaba, G, Inu, and Alice were flying through the sky with Ochiko. This is so cool. Boom, 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 boom. Fireworks burst from Hanabi's fingertips. Thankfully, they were high enough up that they didn't hit the trees and only added to the amazing sight. Ochiko smiled as she saw the children laughing as they flew through the air. I really love my quirk at times like this. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX She had bags around her eyes, and she was clearly tired and struggling to keep lifting. But she continued anyway. Too much exercise will make you weaker, you know. Yashina turned and saw Fu standing in the doorway. I'm fine, fuck off, Yashina said. Wow, there was a lot less bite in that than there was a few days ago. Yonda really did a number on you, Fu said. Yashina stopped what she was doing after hearing Yonda's name and turned to glare at Fu. And who the fuck are you again? Fu. I'm the guy who told Izuku that Yonda was up to her shenanigans, Fu explained. I wouldn't call torturing me in the woods shenanigans, Yashina growled. But thanks. I don't want to know what she would have done to me if Izuku didn't come. Grrrr. Immediately Yashina started glowing, and Fu ducked out of the room and closed the door. Boom. Once the explosion died down, Fu came back into the room and found Yashina on one knee, panting and struggling for breath. All right, that's enough. Fu used Kyosei's tendrils to pick up Yashina, to pick her up. No, I gotta get stronger. Everyone's so strong. And there are monsters like that psychic psycho around. I can't be that weak. I can never be that weak again. Yashina swore as she struggled to stay awake. You don't have to be afraid of Yonda anymore. She's done with you. Fu reassured her. And you will get stronger. Just don't do anything rash. Like, overtrain yourself. Or follow someone you don't know into the woods at night. Yashina stayed silent, knowing that he was completely correct. She should have known better than to follow Yonda into those woods. Especially when she was weakened from her fight with Kiba. Quite literally, if she'd heard something about a kid doing what she just did, she would have called them stupid and said they were asking for whatever happened to them after. But she overestimated herself and underestimated Yonda. That was not a mistake she would ever make again. Yonda had opened her eyes to many things that night. But most importantly, she broke through her ego and allowed her to start learning. Learning how to get smarter, stronger, better. So she would never be in that situation ever again. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX From what she could tell, Yashina had changed for the better, and although she had way more nightmares, those could be managed. What she did feel bad about was the things surrounding what she did. How quickly she started planning. How quickly she resorted to what she did. How much she enjoyed it. Up until Izuku reminded her that she shouldn't be enjoying light torture. But enjoying the suffering of others just kinda seemed to be part of who she was. A part of her that would never be acceptable. The monster within. I wish I was a normal girl. Yonda thought out loud. Yeah, me too. Himiko said, taking hold of her hand, revealing much to Yonda's shock that she snuck into her room and laid down next to her. EAP. Yonda yelped as she shot up and looked down at her blonde sister. How did you get in here without me noticing? Zero thoughts, head empty. Himiko teased with a giggle. Anywho, just wanted to talk to you. Heard you lost the fight with your inner demon. In a manner of speaking, yes. Yonda sighed. I wish my inner demon could be like yours. Just satisfied with stabbing Fu every now and then. No, I have to have some kind of big evil scheme to be satisfied with some big moral lesson at the end. Like an overwritten James Bond villain. It was at that moment her cat chose to sit on her lap. Yes, Esper is very funny. Yonda deadpanned, but she still started petting the cat anyway. Oh, don't be like that. I'm sure we can find a way for you to be you. Even if you're just kinda evil sometimes. Himiko encouraged. Have you tried acting? Don't do it for me. It has to be real, or it just feels empty. Yonda sighed. So you want to really outsmart and hurt people? While also teaching them a lesson and feeling like you're better than them. Do I have that right? Himiko asked. Wow, when you put it like that, it makes me sound even worse. Yonda said. Have you tried chess boxing? Himiko suggested. Chess boxing? Is that a thing? I don't have access to the internet right now, so please don't mess with me. Yonda said. No, it's real. You play a round of chess, and then a round of boxing, and see which one you can win at first. Himiko explained. I think you'd like it. Well, when I get ungrounded I have to watch that. But I don't think I'd be allowed to play that, on account of my quirk. Yonda said. Couldn't you wear those ear things to block your quirk? Himiko asked her. They might fall out during a fight, or they'd count as headgear. Either way, I don't think I could ever be allowed to play that game fairly. Yonda sighed. Maybe you should become a lawyer. I think you'd really like that job. Himiko suggested. I've given that some thought, but that's something for future me to do. I need something to help me now. Yonda said. Welp, I'm out of ideas. But don't lose hope. I'm sure Izuku will find a way to help you. Himiko said. He helped me, and I thought I was a lost cause too. Yonda sighed. I sure hope you're right, Himiko. I hope you're right. Hey, you're one of the fighters around here, right? Huh. Kira looked behind her, putting down her PB sandwich, and saw Shuku was the one who called out to her, looking rather irritated. Oh yeah? I guess you could say that. Would you mind fighting me then? Shuku asked. I was playing a Soulsborne game, and if I don't blow off some steam, I'm gonna blow up my whole room. I mean, sure, but I only promise not to kill you. Kira said bluntly. You know what, good enough, let's go, Shuku said. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX I don't remember this guy saying he wanted to be a hero, so he probably won't be that good of a fighter. Nise reasoned. You'll go easy on him, right? I said I wouldn't kill him, didn't I? Kira reminded her. Kira, you are a trained assassin. Go easy on the kid. Nise told her. Fine. Kira sighed. You can start the battle with the first attack. Thanks, Shuka said, before taking a deep breath. And then suddenly, there was this red sparkle in the air that started rapidly spreading around Shuku. Instinctively, Kira jumped back, using her vectors to get up into a tree. Then suddenly the red exploded into smoke, covering the entire area in smoke and creating a vacuum that knocked down the surrounding trees and forced Kira into the smoke. What the heck just happened? Nise asked. He blew up the air, not only making a smoke screen from the explosion, but also creating a vacuum because all the air disappeared. Kira explained as she tried to think about her next action when suddenly, she started noticing glowing cracks in the ground around her. Oh, kaboom. Kira barely managed to jump into the sky in time. Before the ground itself exploded, chunks of the earth rising up into the air, one of them Kira landed on as it kept flying. She looked around for Shuku but didn't see him, and then, boom. She saw a glowing chunk of the earth flying her way and used one of her vectors to push it back, while using the others to defend herself before it exploded. And even with her vector's protection, the explosion still sent Kira off of her platform and rocketing down back towards the ground. Shuku then started jumping from rock to rock, from chunk of ground to chunk of ground, until he touched all but the one he was now standing on. Quirk activation, partial explosion. Boom, 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 boom. Parts of the things he'd touched exploded, sending everything flying towards Kira, who still had yet to hit the ground, and had no way of avoiding any of this. Special move, Shuku said calmly as the debris homed in on Kira. Meteor bombardment. All Kira could really do was wrap her vectors around her body, as the debris slammed into her and exploded all at once. Kaboom! A massive explosion shook the surrounding trees and sent Kira flying into the ground, slamming into the dirt in her vector cocoon, and skidding through the dirt before hitting a rock and coming to a stop. Kira threw up some blood, even if she wasn't hit by the explosion directly. The sheer amount of force her vectors had taken had put a good bit of strain on her body. Okay, this guy is not a novice, Nise pointed out. Yeah, no shit, Kira said as she looked up at Shuku, standing on his piece of falling debris. Kira sliced a nearby tree, grabbed it, and then threw it at him. Shuku just reached out his hand, and as soon as his fingers touched the tree, it turned red and exploded instantly. He made it explode before the force of the attack could even reach him. Kira gasped. How is he going to get down? Nise noticed. Shuku then answered this question by reaching down and touching the piece of debris he was standing on, turning it red. Then, instead of exploding all at once, the bottom parts of it would explode bit by bit, slowing his fall and lowering him to the ground, until he was able to just jump off it safely. So that's how it works. When he touches something, he can either make the whole thing explode or make parts of it explode at will. That's how he made all those pieces of debris fly at me, Kira thought as she charged at Shuku at full speed, closing the distance between them in almost an instant. But before she could attack, Shuku threw some rocks out of his pocket in front of him, forcing Kira to stop dead in her tracks and go back to get out of the range of the exploding rocks. However, the rocks didn't immediately explode. Instead, Shuku touched the ground and a red crack appeared traveling through the dirt until it reached Kira and then started spreading around her feet. Special move, Shuku said. In rage eruption, Kira jumped by even then. She was still caught by the ground exploding under her. As Kira was sent flying into the air, Shuku touched the ground, making it all glow red, and then all the ground around him went flying up into the sky towards Kira. Special move, Earth's Wrath. TCH. If I can't dodge this. Kira once again wrapped herself in vectors, but this time she also used one of her vectors to take off a chunk of the pieces of ground flying at her and throw it at Shuku as hard as she could. Boom. This forced Shuku to hesitate for a moment and just barely dodge that piece of dirt. Using this little bit of time she bought herself, Kira used her vectors to grab onto the pieces of debris and send herself back to the ground. Kaboom! All of the debris had exploded above her, thankfully, with her out of the range of the explosion, and immediately she charged at Shuku once again. Shuku jumped back, but Kira was much faster and was right on top of him, and landed a powerful blow to the face that sent him flying into a tree. However, at the same time, she hadn't noticed that there was one piece of ground that Shuku hadn't yet detonated, the one under his feet, which was now right under Kira. Boom. Once again, Kira was hit by an explosion that sent her flying back, but Kira caught herself with her vectors, making sure she didn't fly far. And that's when she noticed a bunch of red, glowing debris falling around her, and her eyes widened. He noticed I dodged that attack from earlier, so he only partially exploded it, so he could use the remains later. Special move, Burning Rain, Shuku said, before all the debris around Kira exploded. Kaboom! When the light and smoke started to die down, Kira was revealed, having once again used her vectors to block most of the damage. Kira looked around for Shuku, but he was nowhere to be found. And then there was a hand around her neck. I win, Shuku said casually from behind her. As Shuku took his hand off of her, Kira looked at him in shock. How did you dash? And that's when she noticed he was covered in burns and bruises. You jumped into the fray while the explosion was happening just so you could get behind me. Kira realized. You took your own attack just to win the battle. Well, that was mostly a distraction. Shuku shrugged as he started walking away. Anyway, thanks for the fight. You were definitely the strongest person I've ever fought. And I actually got to use those special moves I thought up. You've never used them before? Kira asked in disbelief. Well, duh. Where would I have ever gotten to use moves like that without getting arrested or something? Shuka said. I'm not even supposed to use my quirk in the city. I barely got to do more than practice a little bit and get into a few fights. But none of the chumps that bothered me were ever as strong as you. How in the world did you get that good with a little bit of practice? Kira asked. Shuka shrugged. It's not that hard. Some guys call me a prodigy, or something. They wanted me to be a hero, but that's a lot of responsibility, you know? I just want to use my quirk to blow off steam from time to time. I don't really care about fighting villains. Anyway, see ya. And so Shuku walked off, leaving Kira with a mix of shock, disbelief, and frustration. What did we just see? Niz asked. I have no idea. Kira answered, but I feel a little insulted. Ochiko was in awe of what she saw through the seer. Wow. Yeah, Shuku is a special case even among the OPCS, Izuku explained, having watched the fight alongside her. He was a bit of a problem child, although it wasn't completely his fault. Once his quirk came in, kids would challenge him to fight to test themselves and their quirks. People found out quickly that Shuku was a special kind of talent, one that only comes around every once in a while. Although Shuku was always the one being challenged, he was constantly beating up other kids until he was recognized as the big boss of his area. The HPSC noticed his talent quickly and tried to scout him, but he refused their offers, and he quickly labeled an OPC afterward. Their intention is clear. By surrounding him with people who want to be heroes, they're hoping he'll change his mind. What about his parents? Ochiko was almost afraid to ask. They gave him up at birth, Izuku explained. I see. Do you think he'll ever change his mind? About becoming a hero? Ochako asked. Because while she didn't agree with the HPSC's obvious manipulation, she had to admit it would be a pity if such a talent was wasted. Who knows? He likes to fight. He just doesn't seem to want to bear the responsibilities of a hero. Izuku explained. Then again, it seems like he doesn't really care to bear any responsibilities, which for now he can get away with. Oh, but he did ask me for some special support gear. And even just looking at his specifications, it's impressive how well he understands his quirk. Makes me wonder what Bakugo would do if he met this kid. Ochako shivered. Everyone would go deaf. To be fair, Bakugo does that by himself, Izuku said. Oh, was that a jab I heard? Ochako grinned. Show a person who says Bakugo is quiet, and I'll show you someone is legally insane, Izuku said. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX After his fight against Knees, once again rumors of his talent spread, and once again people started challenging him. Thankfully, however, the people here respected his wishes. He'd fight on his terms when he wanted to. And right now he was just coming off an all-night gaming session of Rage of Habanashi, and there was plenty of steam he needed to blow off. The others were pretty adamant he fight this Kiba girl, who was apparently one of the strongest people around here. He'd also gotten his hands on that special support equipment he'd asked for. Some gauntlets, and some special shoes, as well as a pouch. Shuku made his way into the clearing and found Kiba waiting for him, with her armor and Hinata by her side. "So you've arrived. I've heard you hold great talent. Show it to me," Kiba said. Hinata bowed her head, and Kiba grabbed the hilt sticking out of her head, and Hinata transformed into her sword form. Shuku whistled. "Impressive." Kiba raised an eyebrow. "I was told you would only be coming to battle when you wanted to blow off steam, yet you seem calm." "Oh, trust me, I'm full of rage right now," Shuku said in a completely calm voice, although his hair was spiked up at the moment. "Anyway, let's do this thing. Mind if I go first? I'll give the privilege of making the first move," Kiba offered. "Great. Thanks," Shuku said, as he got into a sprinter's stance. Boom. Suddenly explosions burst out Shuku's shoes and hands, and he rushed at Kiba with impressive speed. Shuku went to grab her face, and Kiba barely reacted in time, ducking back as Shuku flew past her and towards a tree, but before he could hit it, his shoes exploded again, sending him into the air. It was then that Kiba noticed the ground was glowing red, and quickly reacted by jumping into the air and growing her wings before the ground exploded up into the air as well. "Special move. Homing missiles," Shuku said, as suddenly all the debris partially exploded and started rushing at Kiba. Kiba flew away from it, but the debris kept following her, getting smaller and smaller as chunks of it exploded to keep following her. Shuku then held up his hand, took a deep breath, and used his quirk on the surrounding air, creating a vacuum that Kiba had to fight against as air came rushing in to fill the empty space. This gave the debris time to catch and get close to her. Kiba sliced apart the debris before it could reach her, but it still exploded in front of her, blinding her with light and smoke. With one swipe of her sword, Kiba got rid of smoke, but when she did, she noticed that Shuku was nowhere in sight. Kaboom! 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 Explosions lit up all over the forest around Kiba. Chunks of dirt, trees, and rocks, all launched into the air and glowing bright red, surrounding her completely. Boom! 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 All of the debris started partially exploding as they homed in on Kiba, closing in on her and giving her even lost space to work with. Black Shield! Kiba cried as she summoned shadows and surrounded herself in a sphere of shadow to protect herself. Boom! But then Shuku flew up at the shield and touched it, making it glow red, before he then launched himself away, using the explosions from his shoes, but also seemingly creating explosions from his hands. This was the purpose of Shuku's support gear. Mobility. You see, normally, when Shuku made the air explode, it didn't do much aside from obscure people's vision and create a vacuum. This was because air molecules naturally couldn't hold a lot of energy because of how small they were. That's where the gauntlets and shoes came in. They sucked in air, pressurized, and condensed it before shooting it out. With that much air in a focused space, when Shuko made it explode, the explosion would be substantial, allowing Shuko to propel himself at high speeds using explosions. Kaboom! As the debris closed in on Kiba, both it and her shield exploded, creating yet another massive explosion in the air. Eventually, it settled into a cloud of smoke, and Kiba sliced it away, revealing the significant damage she'd taken, burns all over her body, her armor destroyed, leaving only her limiter suit, and chunks of flesh blow off. All of it regenerated quickly, however. Where's he? Kiba started looking around for Shuko in the decimated forest, but then a tungsten ball suddenly smacked her in the cheek, exploding right in her face, destroying her eye and leaving her with serious burns. Boom, 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 boom. Shuko was gilding around the forest using the trees as cover, pulling these balls from his satchel and then popping them into his gauntlet before launching them up at Kiba. This, of course, was the second purpose of the gauntlets, using that compressed air to launch things way farther than Shuko could ever throw them. And of course, his satchel was filled with small tungsten balls. Due to being made of tungsten, a metal that could absorb a lot of energy, despite their size, these balls could create quite the explosion. Kiba countered this bombardment by simply flying higher until she was out of range of Shuko's attacks. I need to lure him out. I'm going to pull out all the stops, Kiba said as he summoned all of the shadows around them, and had them start turning into a sea of shadows that was engulfing everything on the ground. Seeing the shadows closing in around him, Shuko had to consider his options. The sea of shadows was massive, and at this point, he didn't have enough anger to make the whole thing explode. And he only made the shadows around him explode, his position would be given away, and Kiba would come down at him, with him still being surrounded by shadows. And if he went into the sky, he'd be at a huge disadvantage due to Kiba's speed. Well, if you can't go forward, back, to the sides, or up, there was only one place left to go. Back with Kiba, she finished the sea of shadows and had it swirl around, uprooting trees, moving rocks, and making everything swirl in a spiral. However, this move used a lot of Kiba's energy, and she noticed that Shuko hadn't been caught in the attack, nor was he in the air. Curses! Kiba immediately dispersed the sea of shadows, so it didn't use any more of her energy. As soon as the sea of shadows was gone, the ground under her exploded up toward her. She flew to the side to dodge it, but as the ground rose up next to her, it exploded. Kaboom! Ag! Kiba cried out as she was hit by the explosion. It sent her fly, her wigs torn up, and she fell to the ground, splayed out. Meanwhile, Shuko crawled out of a hole he created, having gone underground to avoid the sea of shadows. Not wanting to give Kiba a moment to rest, he touched the ground, making a crack of red energy that dug through the ground and moved towards Kiba as she tried to pull herself up, until went under her and started spreading until the ground underneath her was glowing red. Kaboom! The ground burst, creating a massive explosion, even making a building-sized mushroom cloud. And a shadow sphere bounced out of the smoke from the explosion, dispersing and revealing Kiba unharmed. At the last moment, she summoned the shadows and used them to shield her. It was close, but she barely made it. I need to recharge, Kiba thought as she started running away. This area was too decimated. She needed to find a place with more life in it. Kiba continued to run until she found a nice lush spot, filled with lovely trees and green grass. And just as she was about to shove her vampiric blade into the ground and start sucking up the nutrients from her surroundings, a tungsten ball hit her arm, exploding, taking her arm clean off, and causing her sword to fall to the ground. She looked to the side and saw that Shuko had followed her. Kiba immediately tried to catch him using his shadow, but Shuko anticipated this, launching himself into the air with an explosion from his shoes before he tossed multiple balls down at Kiba. She summoned a shadow shield above her to protect herself, but when the balls hit the shield, they didn't explode. Instead, they rolled off the sides of the shield and landed around Kiba's feet. Kaboom! Yet another explosion erupted, consuming Kiba and sending her tumbling into a tree, now legless. Kiba summoned more shadows and sent them up at Shuko. Shuko, using his gauntlets and boots, maneuvered around the shadows, and as they got close he touched each one of them, making them explode. This allowed Kiba to finish regenerating and gave her a moment to breathe. Shuko threw down more balls toward her, specifically trying to keep from getting to her blade. Whoosh. Instead of going for her blade, Kiba jumped up and grabbed Shuko by the neck. I win, Kiba said. How did you dash? Shuko was about to ask where that burst of speed came from. She should have been way too drained to have that kind of speed. But then he noticed that Kiba's suit had been super torn up. The suit was made to restrict her speed and power. Oh. Shuko realized where he messed up as the two came down to the ground. Huh. This is the first time I've ever lost. Not as bad as I thought. Thanks for the good time. Well, at least someone was having fun, Kiba thought as she let Shuko go. Meanwhile, Hinata turned back into her human form. I'm sorry I wasn't more useful, Lady Kiba. Nah, you were pretty much the reason she won, Shuko told her. I thought for sure she's gonna go for you, and because of that she managed to get her hands on me. Yes, you were wonderfully useful as always, my dearest Hinata, Kiba said, petting her servant, causing any negative feelings Hinata had to melt away at that moment. Well, thanks again. Anyway, see ya, Shuko said as he started wandering back toward the house, but stopped for a moment. Oh, and one more thing. You probably could have got to me sooner if used those shadows more creatively. Maybe pushing aside the stuff I was throwing at you instead of destroying it. You were also way too defensive. Anyway, see ya. As Shuko walked off, Kiba and Hinata stared at him. Does that boy really intend not to be a hero with potential like that? Hinata asked the obvious question, almost irresponsible. Now, it's his life and he gets to choose what to do with it. Kiba told her, let us just hope the rest of the world can respect that as well. Giza and the would-be hero student kids, except Kai, gathered in the sim room's observation room. All right, children, you've all been focusing on learning how to fight villains. But up until now, we've been ignoring one of the biggest parts of being a hero. Giza said, saving lives. The screen turned on, revealing a bank surrounded by police cars and policemen. In this simulation, you will be tasked with saving a group of hostages from 5 villains. Giza and the screen switched, revealing the inside of the bank. It was a large, 2-story bank with a massive chandelier hanging overhead. A bunch of hostages were tied up in groups, and the 5 villains were standing over them. One had giant claw hands. One appeared to have a body made of steel. One was big and burly. One had long hair with barbs on the end of it. And the last one had a minigun for an arm. These are, of course, LMD or life model decoys, Giza explained. Robots meant to act like real humans. In this situation, the villains are backed into a corner, and they have plenty of hostages to spare, meaning they won't hesitate to kill off 1 or 2 to prove a point. Your mission is to take out the villains without letting them harm any of the hostages. You will be scored based on 3 things. The first is how risky your plan was to the hostages. Even if you succeed, if there was a good chance that your plan could have gotten someone killed, but you got by on sheer luck, that will drastically reduce your score. The second is the time it takes you to complete the mission. While you shouldn't rush such a delicate situation under any circumstance, you also shouldn't take more time than you need lest the situation get worse. Third and least important is property damage. While no object is more important than a person's life, it would be nice if you didn't cause too much damage to your surroundings. I will also take or give away points based on miscellaneous things that may or may not take place during the trial. Now, are there any questions? Yashina raised her hand. Yeah, my quirk isn't really made for rescue, so I'm sitting this one out. Really? What happens if you're the only hero around at the time? Would you truly be willing to stand by and do nothing while innocent lives are at risk? Giza asked. Their lives are better at risk than very dead. Yashina shrugged. Look, I know what I can and can't do. And right now, if I go in there, people gonna die? Maybe everyone's gonna die. So I'm gonna wait for someone else to deal with this. That is a perfectly acceptable choice, Giza said to Minnie's surprise. Sometimes, you lack the skill or ability to handle a situation. In such cases, your intervention could actually cause more harm than good. Of course, the option to do nothing also comes with heavy consequences. If the situation worsens, you may come to regret not stepping in. Now then, with that said, are there any more who wish not to participate? After a little bit, Netsu and Oto raised their hands. Very well. Do we have anyone who would like to go first? Giza asked. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Feeling the flow of the negative energy, She pinpointed the location of the villains. Then she simply activated her telekinesis, picked up the villains, and made them fly out of the bank before dropping them into the street next to her and holding them in place. And just like that, she won. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX just as she'd written. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX noisiness, making her practically undetectable. Of course, stopping light from hitting you made her pretty much blind, or at least it would have, had she not killed her blindness, allowing her to see through some kind of special vision she didn't fully understand. She then proceeded to give all the villains except for the steel one very fine cuts, so fine they wouldn't even notice, and killed their will to act. The villains likely noticed the difference but didn't have the will to do anything about it, leaving only the steel-skinned villain. She just waited for him to open his mouth and cut the inside of his mouth, taking him down. The villains immediately surrendered afterward. Kiba didn't even have to enter the building. Using their own shadows, she restrained the villains and brought them outside, keeping them restrained and ending the exercise. Kano and Shiruka both had similar methods, but with very different results. Shiruka summoned a bunch of spiders and had them bite down on the villains, even going inside the metal guy's mouth, and by the time they realized what was happening, they were already incapacitated by the fast-acting venom. Kano had mosquitoes crawl into the minigun villain's gun to jam it while having the mosquitoes slowly crawl down into the insides of the more durable villains. Then when the time was right, she had walls of mosquitoes chase them away from the hostages, while having the mosquitoes inside the durable villains spring up into their throats, causing them to start choking. Kano flew in and picked up the sharp-haired villain before, throwing her outside through a window, and then doing the same thing to the clawed villain, while the minigun villain tried to shoot at her, only to find that his gun was jammed and very itchy. Then once the other two were dealt with, Kano dropped a brick on that guy's head, knocking him out, and finishing the exercise. Yami just had a bunch of hounds go in and deal with the situation rather easily, getting in undetected and taking down the villains with ease. Himiko went in next. She carefully snuck into the building, climbing in through one of the windows on the second floor, before lying in wait for one of the villains to be out of sight of the others. The claw villain eventually moved behind a pillar, and Himiko struck, dropping down on him, and shoving a rag covered in chloroform in his face, knocking him out. Then she drank his blood and activated his quirk, turning into a perfect copy of him. "Hey guys, found a way out," Himiko said, getting the villain's attention. "There's a secret escape route in the vault. Follow me." And so they did, grabbing their loot and making their way into the vault, just so Himiko could slam it closed on them, locking them inside with her. A few minutes later, the villains were all unconscious, and Himiko had finished. AKA carefully snuck through the vents, before waiting for one of the villains to walk in front of it, and then, using a blow dart, she injected a piece of herself into the long-haired villain. "Act!" the villain cried out, getting everyone's attention. "Hey, what's up?" asked the claw villain. Nothing," said the long-haired villain, as they fell under AKA's thrall. From that point, it was over. The villain, under AKA's control, grabbed some needles from AKA, and slowly but surely, she'd infect the other villains, except for the two villains who had skin too tough for needles to pierce. And so she waited for them to move a little bit away from the hostages, and then went on the attack. Using the minigun villain, she blew the super strong villain's knees off, before using the hair villain to restrain the steel villain, finishing the exercise. Fu went under the bank, and then tentacles exploded out of the ground and grabbed up all of the villains, wrapping around them to make sure they couldn't move. Fu then tossed them outside and kept them restrained. Sanson had gone for the same approach as Fu. However, just as she burst out of the ground and grabbed everyone, the minigun villain started firing, and one of the bullets hit a hostage, causing her to fail. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX down at once. And he got close. But when he dropped down from the ceiling and blasted freezing blasts from his eyes, he accidentally missed the claw villain, who immediately killed a hostage, causing him to fail. Nara had much more success. Using XLR-8, she incapacitated all but the steel-skinned villain and the muscle-bound villain. But by giving them both a good kick to the head, she did manage to daze them long enough for her to get the hostages out. Kira snuck in through the top, got onto the chandelier, and then dropped down before immediately going on the attack. First, she sliced off the minigun villain's arm off, before then cutting off the hair villain's hair and slicing her feet off for good measure. The claw villain went to attack a hostage but sliced off his hands and threw his claw into the back neck of the muscle villain, incapacitating him. And just as the steel-skinned villain was about to attack a hostage, Kira made it to him just in them and held his arm back, before throwing him away from the hostages. Then she cut off his legs from the weaker joints and incapacitated him. And finishing the exercise. Mo had a much different approach from the others. Naturally, it was easy for him to sneak in, but rather than immediately try to take out the villains, he brought part of the ropes the civilians were tied up with into his dimension for a moment, weakening it, while telling the civilians to run when he said so. Then he carefully went over to the hair villain and one by one brought the barbed tips of her hair into his world, whittling them down and making them dull without her noticing. After that, he waited for the claw villain to go out of sight of the others and tripped him, making him fall into his dimension, where he quickly disintegrated. Then he went on the attack, tripping the minigun villain to fall into dimension before yelling and telling everyone to run. The villains were confused about how all the civilians freed themselves so quickly, as well as just noticing their missing teammates before they started attacking hostages. First, the hair villain tried to stab the civilians, only to find her normal razor-sharp barbed hair had been dulled to the point of being completely ineffective. The bulky villain tried grabbing a civilian, only for his hand to go through one of Yami's portals instead, getting really messed up before he pulled it out. And lastly, the steel-skinned villain had been too slow to catch a single civilian, letting everyone escape. Burning a hole through the back of the building, the girls snuck through the building and made their way onto the chandeliers. Then they pounced. Yaba landed on the minigun villain, G on the hair villain, and Inu on the claw villain, taking them down with a single punch. They took advantage of the villain's surprise, and Yaba and Inu jumped on the muscled villain and started clawing and biting at him, and grabbed the metal villain by his foot and dragged him away from the civilians, before breathing fire in his face until he passed out. And when Yaba and Inu brought the last villain down, they'd completed the exercise. Lu was second to last. He stood in front of the bank, Chaos Emerald in hand. He'd deliberately gone second to last, so he could practice a bit more, because what he was about to do was a bit risky and something he hadn't done too often. He took off his limiter rings and held up the emerald. Please work, please work, please work. Chaos control, Lu shouted, and then time slowed down. Lu didn't have any time to celebrate, however, as he could only keep this up for a very short amount of time. He teleported inside and quickly teleported all of the civilians out of the building behind the police line. And then he passed out, time returning to normal, as his body could no longer handle the strain of using so much energy all at once. Tinko was up last, and boy was he nervous. He had the least experience with her quirk, and as such he tried to get a bit more practice in before he went to bat. Making a hole in the back of the bank, he snuck in, until he made it to the main floor, where the villains and hostages were. Okay, I can do this, Tinko assured himself. And then Tinko touched the ground, and it broke apart, before remaking it, raising the civilians up, while making holes where the villains had been standing, making them all in. Yes, Tinko celebrated. And then that jubilation was cut short, as the claw villain managed to climb his way out of the hole. Oh! Tinko panicked as he watched the villain go for one of the pillars to slice it in half. Tinko reacted quickly and touched the ground again, making it fall apart and tripping the claw villain before embedding his arms and feet into the ground, making him immobile. Phew! Tinko breathed a sigh of relief as he completed the exercise. Now, with all the exercises finished, we will rank your performances, Giza said, as he pressed a button, and the scores and rankings were put up on the screen. SS rank, Shina. S rank, Kiba, Seikyo, Shiruku. A rank, Alice, Yami, Himiko, Yaba, G, Inu Nara. B rank, aka Kira Lu. C rank, Tinko, Fu Mu Kano. D rank, Yashina, Netsu, Odo. F rank, Ken, Sanson. C rank. Kano scoffed, taking offense to her rank. While a wall of mosquitoes will disparage most from going one way, were you facing more competent, devoted, or simply insane villains, those mosquitoes wouldn't have stopped them from attacking the hostages. Not to mention your actual attack was somewhat sloppy, Giza criticized, silencing Kano for the moment as she settled for pouting instead. Now then, starting from the top. Shina, your performance was flawless. Removing the threat of the villains, quickly, silently, without risk, and without doing any damage whatsoever to your surroundings. Giza praised. Well done. Many clapped, causing Shina to blush. Oh, it was just thanks to my quirk. While your quirk did make things easy for you, you were only able to perform this well thanks to years of practice. Even if that practice was forced upon you, take pride in what you managed to achieve. Giza told her. Next I will cover both Kiba and Seikyo. Both of you were nearly perfect, however, you did cause slight damage to the bank's roofs and walls, when you simply could have had them exit through the doorways. Both girls turned sheepish, as they realized that one obvious mistake turned them away from a perfect score. Shiroku, also nearly perfect. However, had you been facing more competent or paranoid villains, they may have noticed what you were up to. And had that happened, you would have had no way of stopping them from killing a hostage. I would recommend next time you physically enter the building, so you can stop them from doing anything of the sort next time. Giza advised. Understood, sir, Shiruka said, taking the criticism in stride. Now, Alice, your performance was perfect, but of course, it was contingent on having information on the villains beforehand, something that won't always be the case, Giza said. But that's just how Alice's quirk works. She needs that information. Nara pointed out. That's basically saying the highest Alice could ever get is an A rank. That is correct. While Alice's quirk is no doubt powerful, it's not particularly ideal in sudden situations that spring from nowhere like this one. Giza explained. In some situations, you will have the intelligence needed for your quirk to function, and other times you'll find yourself nearly useless. In that case, can we truly say Alice is as good at handling situations like this as Shina is? Who could handle these situations regardless of nearly any circumstance? Of course not. And that's not a fair comparison, of course, but due to the nature of life, any test is going to be unfair. That being said, given that Alice was given what she needed, she performed at her best. Now then, Yami, your hounds performed wonderfully. However, had the villains been more paranoid, confident, or stronger than expected, things could have gotten very messy quite quickly. Giza said, having some way to protect the civilians would have made your performance perfect. A way to protect civilians, Yami repeated, as already his mind was at work, thinking of a grim that could help with that. For Himiko, Nara, and the triplets, your attacks were coordinated wonderfully. But once again, if the villains had been a bit more savvy or stronger than expected, things could have gone poorly quite quickly. Giza told them. The same goes for AKA, but even more so. Had the villain cried out a bit louder before you took control of them, then you could have failed right then and there. Kira, your performance was quite good as well, immediately neutralizing the villain's strengths before they could effectively use them. However, the amount of dismemberment performed reduced your score by quite a bit. Giza said, sorry, force of habit. Kira apologized. You saying that cutting people's arms off is a habit is kinda scary. Tinko thought. I object. I think Kira's performance was worthy of a rank. She didn't kill those miserable piles of sin, aka complained. While of course we want to prioritize the safety of civilians over villains, things like permanent injury and especially death should be saved as a last resort, Giza explained. Which is why Mu's rather lethal assault lost him quite a few points, as well as the fact that some of the civilians were nearly harmed while trying to escape. Moving on, Lu, Giza said. Although Lu was still unconscious, so he wasn't present to hear any of what Giza was saying. While his results were perfect, the risk that came with what he did cannot be understated. Had he been even a second off, he would have not only gotten the hostages killed, but likely himself as well. Giza then turned his attention to Tenko. Tenko, your plan was well thought out for the most part. However, your lack of experience with your quirk led to a rather sloppy execution. Tenko pretty much expected that. He was just glad he passed. Fu, your assault was quick, but somewhat reckless. Sanson's performance was a glimpse into what could have gone wrong if you were slightly too slow. Giza said, next time I would recommend getting into a position where you can actually see your opponents. The same goes for you, Sanson, although you also need to work on your speed. Then as for the D-ranks, you didn't participate, and therefore while you didn't improve the situation, you didn't make it worse, Giza explained, before looking at Ken, who was turned away in shame. Unlike those in F rank. I've already spoken on Sanson, so now it's time I addressed Ken's two mistakes. The first was his selection of form. We all know there is a better transformation for this task, and we all know why he didn't opt to turn it. Now since this is a simple exercise, and you all are children, I won't get into such matters. However, in true life and death scenarios, personal matters such as that should either be pushed aside or dealt with before you even step onto the battlefield. Ken nodded but didn't say anything on the matter. Now then, I believe it's time we moved on to the second part of this test, Giza said. Team rescues. For the second part of this exercise, there will be a drastically different setting, Giza said as the image of an oil rig came on screen. Here the hostages will be set in multiple locations, and there will be more villains who are far more well coordinated. The location of the hostages and the type of villains you face will change each round, and you will have to find out information on your own. However, all of you will be split into these teams, Giza said, as the screen changed, showing the teams. Fu, Sanson, Mu, Himiko, Alice, Ken, aka Kano, Tenko, Kiba, Seikyo, Shina, Yaba, Ji, Inu, Nara, Lu, Shiruku, Yami. Wait, why does one team have 4? Kiba immediately asked. Unless we count the triplets as one, in which case they only have 2? Giza shrugged. It's just how the numbers panned out. Now then, the exercise you be considered a success if you take out all the villains or rescue the hostages. Although you might find that harder considering the location is over water. And of course, the exercise will end in failure if any of the hostages are killed. As stated, the villains will have communicators and generally be more competent. So a more stealthy approach will do you well in most cases. With that said, let's begin. Fu and Mu approached the docking area underwater, inside of a Sanson bubble. When they reached their entry point, Mu exited the bubble into his pocket dimension. Afterwards, they waited a while, until Mu returned. I took care of the guys in the docking area, and the guy in charge. Mu told them, so their communications should be a bit off. With that info, Sanson surfaced and let the two onto the docking area. Mu then used Fu's blood to draw a map of the entire area while giving a detailed listing of all the villains' quirks, at least the ones he could find out about, and where all the hostages were located. And with that, they moved out. The first area of concern was the cafeteria, where many civilians had been tied up and watched over by 2 villains. One villain with an obvious elephant quirk, and another person looked rather normal and thus had an unknown quirk. The elephant villain heard something slimy, and started looking around. What is it? The other villain asked. I don't know. Heard something, kinda wet. The elephant villain said as he looked around. Dude, we're over water. The other villain said. And then, he suddenly heard a sizzling sound. By the time he realized what was going on, it was already too late. Sanson popped out of the ground beneath them and grabbed and consumed their bodies whole. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Two villains with guns stood guarding them. Suddenly, two giant arms grabbed their feet and dragged them through the ground. And after a few gunshots, they were silenced. Inside the hall of the workers' personal quarters, all the workers were locked in their room. A monstrous werewolf villain stalking the halls, waiting for orders. That's when Fu came into sight. Wah, a hero? The werewolf tried to pull out the communicator, only to find he didn't have it, as Mu had destroyed it beforehand. Fu then launched tendrils at him, re-staining his limbs, and then shoving them down his throat to keep him from breathing, until he passed out. Sanson and Fu continued taking out the villains in groups, while Mu messed with their communications and freed hostages until finally the exercise was complete. Next up, it was Himiko, Alice, and Ken's turn. First, Himiko had Ken turn into Ripjaws and sneak her close to the rig, before tossing her onto it, using his jaw. Afterward, Himiko snuck through the base, lurking in the shadows, and then hiding in one of the bathrooms. When one of the mooks finally went in to do their business, as soon as they sat down on the toilet, Himiko fell from the ceiling and put her knife over his neck. Unless you want to start gushing out of a different hole than you intended, you're going to talk. A lot. Himiko said. Why you won't kill me? You're a hero. The villain said, only for Himiko's knife to dig into his skin, not quite drawing blood, but getting scarily close. Heroes choose not to kill, most of the time. Himiko reminded him. Do I seem like a hero that doesn't like to kill? The leader of the operation was looking down at everything from the boss's quarters. A few hostages tied up behind him for good measure. Suddenly, the door to the office opened, and one of his mooks walked in. Sorry, boss, I just got some bad news. What is it? And what made you leave your post to come talk to me about it? The leader said, raising an eyebrow. Well, you see dash. Then suddenly the mook threw a knife, destroying the boss's communicator. The boss immediately took a shot at her with his laser eyes, but Himiko ducked under it and threw some more knives into his kneecaps. The boss fell onto his stomach and shot one more blast at Himiko, but this time Himiko jumped over it and landed on his back, out of range of his quirk. Here's how this is going to go. I'm not going to kill you. But Himiko then stabbed a nerve in his forehead, while covering his mouth as he screamed in agony. I can make our time together very, very exciting. So unless you want to figure exactly how much blood a person can lose before their body doesn't work anymore, as slowly as possible, you're going to tell me everything. After that, it was all over. Himiko relayed all the information to Alice. And with her quirk and Himiko impersonating the boss, they were able to fully control their enemy's movements. Ken acted as the literal muscle, while Mud allowed him to quickly, yet carefully pick everyone off and save the hostages without issues. Which meant it was time for the next team to take the stage. AKA and Kano had a simple, yet genius plan. Have Kano's mosquitoes carry tiny pieces of AKA and inject them into the villains. For the most part, this worked without issue. There were some villains with skin too hard for the mosquitoes to pierce, but there were only a couple of those, who could easily be taken care of by the others. It was all going well, until a bump in the road caused their entire plan to crash and burn. There were two villains guarding a few hostages, one with super hard skin and the other armed with a gun. Kano had her mosquito go and try to infect him. Gah! The goon cried as he felt AKA try to take over his mind. And then he activated his quirk, increasing his body temperature to a point where that little bit of AKA simply couldn't survive. Once it was clear something was up, he turned his gun on the hostages and fired, ending the exercise in failure. The next team made the exercise look like a cakewalk. Sheena casually made her way through the oil rig using her invisibility and pure silence buffs. There were surprisingly some villains who had quirks that allowed them to notice her, but Sheena took them out and any surrounding mooks before they could make a fuss. Once Shina located all the hostages, Seikyo put force fields around them and carried them out of the rig, Kiba putting a stop to anyone who stood a chance of stopping this evacuation. And with that, they'd won. First, the triplets swam Nara onto the docking area. Nara used her gray matter form to sneak past everyone and get into the vents. There Nara spent hours sneaking around, transforming in and out of gray matter form, and taking mental notes on everyone's positions, routes, abilities, potential abilities, and every detail she could garner with her enhanced intelligence from the vents. Afterward, she exited the vents and made it into the water, leaving the rig using XLR-8. Then when after making a careful plan, they went back with XLR-8, taking out everyone at the docking area before quickly taking over the rig. Taking out all of the villains so quickly and precisely, they never stood a chance. Once again, the next team made light work of the challenge. Using Lee's chaos sense, he was able to get a map of the whole place in minutes. After that, Shiruku's spiders, Yami's hounds, and Lee's teleportation ended the practice in less than 20 minutes. Well then, I hope this exercise has taught you all something very important. Giza said, yeah, that exercise was rigged. Kano and AKA sulked. Of course it was. Did you think I would let us use such an obvious strategy without tripping you up? Giza chuckled. That room was designed to test your ability to adapt, and because you got overconfident, you failed. And that brings me to what I was trying to tell you, the importance of information and teamwork. I'm sure you all noticed how much harder that would have been if most of you attempted it on your own, or simply how much faster others made the process of completing the exercise. Giza explained, whether that be information gathering or acting as muscle, we all have our parts to play, and when we play those parts together in perfect step, anything is possible. Of course, no matter how powerful you are or how many allies you have, getting careless will always bring your undoing. Understood? Yes, sensei, everyone said. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed Support the Writer. Don't forget to like, sub, and share.